sa kapangyarihan po ng umaapaw na pirma ng 24 na senador, hindi po tumigil ang ating tanggapan sa pagsubaybay sa pag-usad ng kasong naihain laban kay Tatay Said mula po sa Taguig hanggang Zamboanga Peninsula, Sulu at Tawi-Tawi. Hindi rin po tumigil ang Public Attorney's Office sa pangunguna nila District Public Attorney Ariel Ruiz, Attorney Claudette Claudel, Attorney Bridget Servino, Attorney Maria Perpetua Ramos, Regional Public Attorney Edgardo Gonzales, Attorney Anesito Tiempo, Attorney Muhammad Ahmad Amsawa, at sa pamumuno ni PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta upang sigurihing malinis si Tatay Said at ang kanyang pangalan ay maalis po dito sa mga karumal-dumal na krimen. Matapos po ang mahabang paghihintay at paglilitis, si Tatay Said po ay nakalaya na. Ginoong Pangulo, dahil po sa ipinakitang pagmamahal ng Senado at ipinaglaban ng Senado na makalaya si Tatay. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, nandito po ngayon si Tatay, nakalabas na po siya. Maraming salamat po. Alam niyo po, ito po ay isang tagumpay sapagkat dito ay pinakikita, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ang boses ng Senado.
Incorporated na nagmamayari ng mga kabling yan nung nalapitan po ng mga naberya nila. Ano ang mga sinabi? Magsumiti raw ng pictures at video para ma-refer sa kanilang legal at pag-aaralan. Pagkatapos po noon, aming tinawagan ng MMDA. Ang sagot lang sa amin ng magaling na MMDA, hindi daw nila jurisdiction yung nangyari. Kawawang mga nilalang. Mga walang malay na naghanap buhay lang at namamalengke sana ay muntik pang mabawian ng buhay. At ito mga may kasalanang walang urgency at malasakit sa mga tao. Dahil sa pangyayaring ito, aking pong pinatingnan ang estado ng mga kable sa ating mga kapaligiran. Mr. President, just last August 2023, dahil sa mga nag-ipon-ipon na kable sa mga poste ng kuryente sa Binondo, sa tabi mismo ng Binondo Church, 4 na posteng bumagsak dahil sa bigat. Nabagsakan po ang ilang mga sasakyan. Naputol ang kuryente at ibang telco services. Kasabang internet doon sa area na yun. Pagkatapos po, sinara ang kalye upang maayos ang mga bumagsak na poste kaya nagdulot ng traffic. Mr. President, ito po mga spaghetti wires ang nagdudulot ng napakaraming problema para sa ating bayan.
Camarines Norte and Nueva Ecija, our colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, for his manifestation, Mr. President.
Yes, and also the adopted son of Mindanao, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I know you have good news for us today, for the record. You're recognized, sir.
Maraming salamat po, aming mandirigmang Ginoong Tagapangulo at sa atin pong pinunong mayorya. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sa lahat po ng bumubuo ng lupon ng pagpupulong na ito, nais ko pong ibalita ang tagumpay ng demokrasya sa ating inang bayang Pilipinas na sumibol sa bulwagang ito. Kung inyo pong mamarapatin, babalikan ko po sana ang nakalipas na 6 na buwan. Noong pong Agosto 10, 2023, habang papunta sa Kuala Lumpur, ay hinarang po si Tatay Muhammad Said ng mga tauhan ng Bureau of Immigration sa Naya, Terminal 3. Matapos pong magkaroon ng alert ang kanyang pangalan dahil sa isang Interpol Red Notice at ipinasa sa NBI International Airport Investigation Division. Agosto 29, sa ulat ng NBI, ang hinahanap ng kinaukulan na si Muhammad Said alias Ama Maas ay wanted dahil sa kanyang partisipasyon o pamumuno sa 25 counts of frustrated murder, 3 separate murder cases, kidnapping with murder, at kidnap with serious illegal detention. September 5, Tumayo po tayong lahat sa bulwagang ito at humingi po ng saklolo, kagyat pong umaksyon ang Warrior Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, kaakibat po ang bar top-notcher Minority Leader Aquilino Pimentel para harapin ang kasong mistaken identity ni Tatay Muhammad Makaantal Said. Sa edad po na 62 years old, isa pong senior. Umalingaw-ngaw ang boses ng mga senador upang ipaglaban ang karapatan ni Muhammad Makaantal Said. Dumaan po ang ilang buwan at bagong taon na natiling nakapiit po si Tatay Said para sa mga akusasyong wala siyang kinalaman. Sa mga buwang ito, sa patnubay pa rin po ng lupon ng mga Senado at sa kapangyarihan po ng umaapaw na pirma ng 24 na senador, hindi po tumigil ang ating tanggapan sa pagsubaybay sa pag-usad ng kasong naihain laban kay Tatay Said. Mula po sa Taguig hanggang Zamboanga Peninsula, Sulu at Tawi-Tawi. Hindi rin po tumigil ang Public Attorney's Office sa pangunguna nila District Public Attorney Ariel Ruiz, Attorney Claudette Claudel, Attorney Bridget Servino, Attorney Maria Perpetua Ramos, Regional Public Attorney Edgardo Gonzales, Attorney Anesito Tiempo, Attorney Muhammad Ahmad Amsawa, at sa pamumuno ni PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta upang sigurihing malinis si Tatay Said at ang kanyang pangalan ay maalis po dito sa mga karumal-dumal na krimen. Matapos po ang mahabang paghihintay at paglilitis, si Tatay Said po ay nakalaya na. Ginoong Pangulo, dahil po sa ipinakitang pagmamahal ng Senado at ipinaglaban ng Senado na makalaya si Tatay. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, nandito po ngayon si Tatay, nakalabas na po siya. Maraming salamat po. Alam niyo po, ito po ay isang tagumpay sapagkat dito ay pinakikita, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ang boses ng Senado. Na kapag nag-ingay at ipinaglaban ng Senado, talaga pong merong talagang demokrasyang mararamdaman ang ating mga kababayan. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, hindi po natapos ang kwento sapagkat patuloy po ang pagiging biktima ng pangalang Ama Maas. Sapagkat pagkatapos po nating mapagtagumpayan ngayon si Tatay, meron naman pong isang kapangalan pa uli. Meron na naman pong isang individual na humihingi ng tulong sa atin sapagkat ang isang nangangalang Muhammad Pangkoga Said, siya po ang lumabas na litrato dito. Siya po yan. Ito po yung nilabas ng litrato ng ating mga naghahanap ng kidnapper. Ito po yung lumabas. Ito pong taong ito ay humihingi din ng tulong sa atin na hindi ako yan. Sapagkat pinatutunayan po ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, na patay na po. Patay na po yung pinaghahanap ng batas. Siya po ay matagal nang nakaratay. Kaya sana po ay Ginoong Tagapangulo, ang kaso po ng mistaken identity ay hindi biro-biro. Ito po ay hindi makatwiran, makatarungan at makatao. Hindi na po ito katanggap-tanggap, lalo na sa panahon na bumubuhos ang technology at innovations. Kung nais po nating tunay na maibalik ang tiwala ng publiko at patatagin ang pundasyon ng isang makatarungang lipunan, sana po ay wala nang matulad kay Tatay Muhammad at kay Muhammad Pangkoga Said. Lagi po sanang tandaan ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno ang sinabi sa Konstitusyon, Artikulo 3, Seksyon 1, hindi dapat alisan ng buhay, kalayaan o ari-arian ang sinumang tao nang hindi kaparaanan ng batas. Di pagkaitan ng sinumang tao, kailangan ibigay ang pangangalaga ng batas pantay-pantay sa bawat Pilipino. Muli po, Ginoong Pangulo, ako po'y nagpapasalamat sa lupon ng mga Senado, sa lupon ng mga senador, ang inyo pong 24 na pirma ay siyang tunay na pirma ng demokrasya ng pelikulang Pilipino ng Republika ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po kayo, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, dahil sa inyong pagtutok nitong kasong ito at pagkuha ng suporta ng lahat ng membro ng Senado. So, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I just make a very short manifestation? First of all, we laud the efforts of our dear colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I distinctly remember that very time when he talked to me about it, and I was the first one to volunteer to distribute to ask for the signatures of our colleagues here in this August chamber in this particular incident, Mr. President. But Mr. President, more than anything, despite the fact that we are happy that Mr. Muhammad Said is here with us, we would like to apologize to him, Mr. President, on behalf ng mga kawaninang pamahalaan sa gobyerno. Humihingi po kami ng paumanhin. Tatay, sir, paumanhin po sa pagkukulang ng ating pamahalaan, ng ating gobyerno. Nakakalungkot po, Mr. President, and this is the reason why I would request the gentleman from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte to instead of just making it as a manifestation, we convert his manifestation into a privileged speech so that we can refer it, perhaps, Mr. President, in the Rules Committee, and I would take the lead if with your blessing. I spoke with our minority leader to look into this so that, Mr. President, we can come up with a report and ask the concerned government agencies, PNP, DOJ, BID, kung sino man, Mr. President. Hindi po biro ito. Hindi po dapat ito sabihing isolated case, Mr. President, kasi pagkasabi pa nga po nung ating kasamahan na nandito, nakalaya na po si Muhammad Said, meron na namang another Muhammad Said na pinapangalanan at tinuturo, samantalang ang AFP pala sinasabing matagal ng malamig na bangkay itong tao na ito. Mr. President, hindi po biro ito, and we feel that saying sorry is not enough, Mr. President. Dapat may compensation, dapat humingi ng public apology kung sino man yung mga lousy na nagpalabas ng ganitong kautusan, Mr. President, without having a strong basis to arrest and detain our visitor today, Mr. President. I also would like to point out, Mr. President, that this representation filed Senate Bill number 1607, amending RA number 7309, which created the Board of Claims under the Department of Justice. Our Senate Minority Leader is also our co-author, Mr. President, kasi yung current law provides that victims are only entitled to a mere 1,000 pesos per month of unjust detention or imprisonment, or a maximum of 10,000 pesos for all other cases, Mr. President. Hindi ho makatarungan ito kung pag-uusapan natin ng hustisya, nakakahiya po para sa isang kawani ng pamahalaan o isang government official, employee, na magsabing ito ay okay lang at parte ito ng justice system natin. Mr. President, we feel that and as we push this measure, we wanted to increase the amount of compensation from 1,000 to 5,000 per month, subject to a maximum of 300,000 for victims of illegal detention and 50,000 for victims of other crimes. We hope to see an improvement, Mr. President. That's all I can say right now. We are dying to see a big improvement, Mr. President, in our justice system, not only through this bill, but also to this incident right now that had happened right before our very eyes, Mr. President. As I met Mr. Muhammad Said kanina, Mr. President, damang-dama ko, Mr. President, yung pinagdaanan po niya. Tao lang ho tayo eh. Masakit po yung ginawa sa kanya, Mr. President. Nakakahiya po na parte tayo ng gobyerno, tas ganun lang po yung mangyayari, tapos hihingi lang ng sorry yung government agency. So again, Mr. President, with the indulgence of my colleagues, if I can refer this privileged speech of our dear colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, to the Committee on Rules, Mr. President.
Yes, and I join your
Thank you.
motion dahil unang-una, alam mo, tama sinabi ni Senator Joel. Yan ang pinag-usapan natin dyan na Manong kanina. Sabi ko, ganyan na lang ba? Na ilalabas ka lang na wala pa nga yatang story, hindi pa humingi ng paumanhin ng mga agencies. Hindi pa sila nabibigay ng formal apology. Tayo pa lang sa Senado in behalf of the government of the Philippines. Pero alam mo, hindi dapat ganyan lang. Dapat they should do their casework more efficiently. Tama sinabi ni Senator Padilla kanina na modernize na lahat, di ba? Meron ng DNA, meron ng yung mga thumb marks, mga digital na lahat itong mga larawan nila. Hindi na dapat mangyari muli ito sa ating mga kababayan. At tama po si Senator Robin, baka isa lamang siya sa napakarami, no? Napakaraming may mga problemang ganito na mistaken identity. Kaya importante dyan ay tulungan natin si Manong I agree na we come up with a formal notice sa mga ahensya like NBI, sa Bureau of Immigrations, pati yung Department of Justice, and so that they can give a formal apology and hopefully just compensation. Yung illegal detention na nangyari dun sa kanya, arbitrary detention is something that siguro is an injustice, no? Injustice talaga yan. Kung walang hustisya, ika nga, no, sa pangyayaring yon. So sa ating mga kapatid na Muslim, I'm so happy, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, God is great truly, na may hustisya po. And you have the support of the Senate. Pagka ganun, ang tutulungan talaga namin dito sa Senado, kapakanan natin mga kababayan, no matter how difficult it is. Basta tumakbo lang po kayo dito sa Senado, tutulungan po kayo. At lahat po kami, lahat po kami hinalal ninyo. Hindi po kami halal na isang distrito. Kami po halal na mga taga BARM, taga Ilocos Norte, taga Visayas, taga Cebu. Kaya lahat po ng hinanakit at hinanaing ng ating mga kababayan sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas, dito po ang puntahan sa Senado dahil yan po ang trabaho namin, na tulungan kayo. So, without further ado, Majority Leader, you can refer the
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we refer the speech of the gentleman from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, and all the manifestations thereon to the Committee on Rules. I so move, Mr.
And
President.
before I do that, I just also want to thank once again Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Yes.
Kung hindi dahil sa iyo, Padre, hindi mo tinutukan ito, siguro baka naiwan ng nasa kulungan si Mohammed Said. So, we have to give respect where respect is due. Mabuhay ka, sir, and continue to fight for the needs of our kababayan, particularly our Muslim brothers in Mindanao. Maraming salamat sa iyo. Mabuhay ka. Thank you.
So for the previous motion, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the motion is approved.
No other than our idol, Senator Raffy Tulfo, to deliver his privileged speech.
Our
So moved,
distinguished
Mr. President.
colleague, Senator Raffy Tulfo, is recognized, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Gusto ko po ihain sa inyo ngayong araw na ito ang spaghetti. Hindi po ito yung spaghetti na ikinakain natin sa handaan o yung kantang spaghetti. Sa halip, ito pong spaghetti na ito ay matuturing kong panganib at perwisyo sa ating mga kababayan. I present to you spaghetti wires and cables. My staff went around the metro to take photos of these entangled and voluminous wires and cables, and it was very easy to find them. Alam ko, pamilyar po tayong lahat sa mga ito. Ang sakit po sa mga mata. My attention was recently called regarding these spaghetti wires when several complainants came to my program last Friday because they got into an accident due to some hanging wires along EDSA. Panoorin po natin. Mr. President,
Dito nakakabli ng kawad po.
oh, kaya may ano ka sa liig,
Opo, sir.
bandage.
Kaya po yung time na yun, sir, binitawan ko na po yung motor ko, hindi ko na po alam kung anong nangyari sa amin. Sa gitna po ng kalsada, sir. Buti lang po yung mga ibang motorcycle rider na tumulong po sa amin. Kasi kung may kasunod pong nangyari sa amin pagkatumba, baka nasagasaan na po kami noon.
Pati si ma'am.
Opo.
Ang ulo ko
Sa
sir, ang
Mount
tumama. Tapos yung ipin ko.
We already contacted Philippine Global Communications Incorporated through their customer service representative po. We informed po na mayroon pong ganong insidente nangyari, and also we emailed the police report po.
Ano pong sagot nila, Corporal?
Ang sabi po nung nakausap natin na si Mika po ay na-forward na daw po nila yung police report doon po sa kanilang legal.
Kausapin ko yung chairman ng MMDA. Of course, responsable ng may-ari ng kable. Pero dapat bilang sila yung namamahala niya sa mga kalye, sa EDSA, yung MMDA dapat nakita nila na may mga nakabalanda na kable, tinawagan nila yung Philippine Global para ipaayos. Mr. President, 4 incidents involving just that particular area in EDSA, and yet, kinalangan pa po nila pumunta sa aking programa para magsumbong. Ito pong mga taga-Philippine Global Communications Incorporated na nagmamay-ari ng mga kabling yan nung nalapitan po ng mga naberya nila. Ano ang mga sinabi? Magsumiti raw ng pictures at video para ma-refer sa kanilang legal at pag-aaralan. Pagkatapos po noon, aming tinawagan ng MMDA. Ang sagot lang sa amin ng magaling na MMDA, hindi daw nila jurisdiction yung nangyari. Kawawang mga nila lang. Mga walang malay na naghanap buhay lang at namamalengke sana ay muntik pang mabawian ng buhay. At ito mga may kasalanang walang urgency at malasakit sa mga tao. Ibabato pa sa legal. At ang MMDA na sana ay ang sangay ng gobyerno na maaaring nakagawa ng paraan upang mapigilan ang mga aksidente sa pamagitan ng pagtawag ng atensyon nitong Philippine Global Communications ay umiiwas sa kanilang responsibilidad. Dahil sa pangyayaring ito, aking pong pinatingnan ang estado ng mga kable sa ating mga kapaligiran. Mr. President, just last August 2023, dahil sa mga nag-ipon-ipon na kable sa mga poste ng kuryente sa Binondo, sa tabi mismo ng Binondo Church, 4 na posteng bumagsak dahil sa bigat. Nabagsakan po ang ilang mga sasakyan. Naputol ang kuryente at ibang telco services. Kasamang internet doon sa area na yun. Pagkatapos po, sinarang kalye upang maayos ang mga bumagsak na poste kaya nagdulot ng traffic. Mr. President, ito po mga spaghetti wires ang nagdudulot ng napakaraming problema para sa ating bayan. Number 1, just like in the case that was brought to me, it is a risk to life and limb. It poses real danger to our citizens. Ito lang po is enough to make this matter a national concern. It could also be a cause of terrible traffic. Kapag ito pong mga kable at mga poste bumagsak, ito po ay magdudulot ng matinding traffic. Number 3, damage to property. Just like the one in Binondo, it fell on cars parked along the street. If these wires are not maintained well, it is known to cause fire as well. Number 4, damage to heritage sites. Kung magagawin po tayo sa Intramuros, madami din po mga ganitong spaghetti wires. And if these wires damage the properties there, hindi po madaling mag-restore ng mga lugar na luma na at kung masunog halos, imposible na maibalik ito sa dati. Number 5, it is an eyesore. As mentioned earlier, tourists who visit Intramuros see how these lines hamper the beautiful sights there. Ang sakit po sa mata ng mga spaghetti wires na ito. And number 6, interrupted in electricity and telecommunications. Just like what happened in Binondo when it fell, businesses, including banks, lost their internet. What if hospitals are affected and they experience brownouts for a long period of time, especially in the middle of a surgery? Mahirap po yung ganong klaseng sitwasyon. All these possible impending danger and negative effects could be prevented if people who are responsible would just stop looking the other way and pretend that these wires do not exist. Mr. President, bakit nga ba nagkakaganito ang mga wires at kable natin? It seems that these wires are mostly from utility companies such as telecommunication, internet providers, and electricity distributors. These companies apply for permits to install these structures and attach these cables, but there seems to be nobody actively regulating them. Nobody is monitoring them, in short. Once a wire is no longer in use, they shall leave it there. And new utility providers just keep on adding and adding and adding more wires. Some would give an excuse that they cannot just remove the useless and abandoned wires because hindi naman daw sa kanila yun. So nagmumukha pong tambakan ang mga poste natin ng mga kable na nagkakabulbol at wala nang pakinabang. Tapos, minsan pa po, ginagawa pa nila yung storage facility para madali silang mag-ayos. May ilang nag-iwan ng mga rolyo ng kable para kung may ayusin, nandun agad, extra cables. Mr. President, who issues the permit for this construction and installation? We have the building officials issuing building permits. These are supposed to go to the city engineering office. But how come it is as if after submitting the requirements, these companies have a free hand already in whatever they hang in these poles? There should be a continuous monitoring so that the permits could be lifted when they are not compliant. Ito pong Philippine Global Communications Incorporated ay dapat ma-review ang kanilang permit to operate. They are not doing their job properly. And who knows, ilan pang mga kable nila ang nagdudulot sa mga perwisyo sa tao. Mr. President, in the case that happened to the complainants that approached me, there is a clear lack of accountability on the telcos and the government regulating agencies. We have to determine whose liability this is. LGU ba? DPWH, or the telcos, all electric distribution companies. There should be more national direction regarding these concerns. There are individuals' actions in some areas. For example, in Davao, they already installed their cables underground. Matagal na po ito, pinopropose ni Architect Palafox. What is stopping us from implementing this? And while this is pending, there are some LGUs like in Cebu and Valenzuela that did a clearing drive in their area of these cables. In Pasig, they have an ordinance holding telcos and electric companies liable for failure to clear these lines. Maybe we could explore these options so that these spaghetti wires could finally be resolved and no more life could be put at risk. I believe that the Committee on Public Works, under the chairmanship of Senator Buong Revilla, could ably address this. And as chairman of the Committee on Energy, I will take the cudgels against the electric distribution companies. If there are adjustments that we need to make in our laws and put the responsibility on those businesses making use of these posts and cables, I know we can work on these together. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Rafi Tulfo. Session suspended.
Sir, maidagdag ko lamang po. Nung gabi po na yun, 4 na sunod-sunod po yung nadisgrasya. 4 po. Maliban pa po sa kanila, may mga nauna po. Opo, siya po yung isa sa mga biktima. Bali, 12 midnight po. Alas 1:30 po ng umaga. At meron pa rin pong nabasagan po ng windshield.
Mr. President, Senators Revilla and Nancy Binay would just like to insert into the records their co-sponsorship speech. Next to co-sponsor, Mr. President, is the distinguished gentleman from Davao and the province of Bohol, no other than our idol, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. I move that he be recognized.
Our brother from Mindanao, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and from Bohol is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, Majority Leader. Good afternoon, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues. I rise today before this August chamber to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 2534 under Committee Report number 190, entitled Wage Increase Act of 2023, which aims to increase the minimum wage rate of all workers in the private sector, whether agricultural or non-agricultural, by 100 pesos a day. It gives me great honor and pride to take part in furthering this noble cause of directly aiding our countrymen's life through a legislated wage increase. This undertaking will somehow ease the financial burden of several of our people who continue to make ends meet. Hopefully, may this measure also give even a little amount of comfort to some. We very well know that even before the pandemic, workers in the private sector have struggled in their everyday lives to put food on their plate. Inflation is a reality that needs to be addressed by the government with urgency. I am very fortunate to belong to an institution that has always been sensitive to the plight of the ordinary Filipino. The Senate, through this legislation, has committed itself to not only decrease the suffering of our people, but also end it. Magkano po ba ang dignidad ng isang Pilipinong manggagawa? Ito po ay kailanman hindi masusukat ng anumang halaga ng salapi. Buong-buo po ang aking pagsuporta sa dagdag ng 100 piso sa sahod ng ating mga manggagawa. Ngunit wala rin naman po sigurong masama kung gusto pa natin itong dagdagan pa. Bagamat may tuturing po na pampaampat ng pagdurugo o pananandaliang lunas ang ating panukala na ito, nawa po ay kahit papaano ay makapagbigay ito ng kahit kaunting kaluwagan at espasyo para makahinga ang ating mga kababayan. To reiterate, there is no monetary amount that can ever measure the dignity of the Filipino worker. However, Mr. President, I hope the workers will consider this legislative measure as a first tranche of efforts that the Senate will do to requite the unmeasurable contribution of minimum wage workers to our economy. Malayo-layo pa po ang ating lalakbayin bilang isang bansa para makamit ang ating minimithing pag-unlad at ganap na pagwawagi laban sa kahirapan. Pero ituring po natin ang panukalang ito na isa sa marami pa nating mga hakbang patungo sa pagbibigay ng kaginhawaan sa buhay ng ating mga manggagawa. Ika nga po ng mga kabataan ngayon, malayo pa, pero malayo na. Pasasaan pa't makakarating din. Thank you, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat, Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measures, the distinguished gentleman from Camarines Norte and Nueva Ecija, no other than our idol, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Our dear brother, adopted son of Mindanao and from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte, Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo at sa ating pinunong mayorya. Bismillah, gusto ko lamang pong magbigay ng isang matipunong saludo sa amin pong mga kasamang senador na nagbigay po ng panukalang ito. Unang-una na po, siyempre, kay Senator Jingo Estrada at sa ating pong Warrior Senate President, Senator Mig Subiri, at sa lahat po ng mga author ng panukala na ito. Nais ko lamang din pong ipahatid ang aking intensyon na maging kapwa may akda at kapwa sponsor ng Senate Bill number 2534 sa ilalim ng Committee Report number 190. Ang paghahain po ng panukalang ito sa plenaryo ay patotoo na mayroong mga tengang nakikinig at pusong nakakaunawa sa pinagdadaanan ng mga mamamayang Pilipino. At bilang gusto ko lamang pong isunod, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, na sana po ay maharap din po natin ang usapin ng patungkol sa union na ito po ay nagiging suliranin na rin ng ating mga manggagawa sapagkat nagkakaroon po tayo ng mga homegrown unions na ito po ay nagiging sagabal, nagiging problema, suliranin ng ating mga manggagawa sapagkat ang sinasabi po sa ating konstitusyon dapat sila, mga manggagawa, ang nagtatayo ng union, hindi yung mismong kanilang pinagtatrabahuan. Yun lamang po, maraming salamat po, mabuhay po kayo at muli po akong sumasaludo. Isa pong karangalan sa inyong lingkod na maging bahagi ng panukalang batas na ito. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Maraming salamat din, Ginoong Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Mr. President, Senator Bato de la Rosa is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, this representation is requesting to be made as a co-author of this particular mission with the permission of the main author, Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I'm the
all means.
principal author din ako and together with the sponsor. I would suggest that we make all members. I think no members against this measure. Mr.
I would love to make that motion, Mr. President, if you want me to, but it's up to you, Mr. President.
Why not? It's up
I
to
think
them.
a lot of our colleagues have signified their
Intention
intention,
to support.
Mr. President, and at the proper time, probably, Mr. President.
Probably the proper
we'll,
time after the debates.
Yes, Mr. President, because in the Senate we
Respect.
debate
Yeah,
and
we
talk
respect.
and
We
debate.
respect every individual opinion and
Yes.
position. Yes.
No fast break po yung binibigay, sinasabi ni Senator Bato. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished lady from Akbayan, our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Another one of our fighters and advocates of wage increase in the Senate, no other than our distinguished Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Salamat kaayo, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to co-sponsor this bill as support to increase the minimum wage as a starting point, leading to a living wage. Naniniwala po ako na mismong ganitong uri ng mga panukalang batas ang dapat tutukan ng lehislatura, parehong Senado at House of Representatives. After all, this is precisely the mandate of our 1987 Constitution. Article 13, Section 1 declares that the Congress shall give a highest priority to the enactment of measures that protect and enhance the right of all the people to human dignity, reduce social, economic, and political inequalities, and remove cultural inequities by equitably diffusing wealth and political power for the common good. Pagpapabuti sa kapakanan ng karaniwang Pilipino ang tanging rason kung bakit tayo narito. Kasabay po nito, dapat rin nating ikonsidera ang mas malawak pang suporta ng gobyerno sa MSMEs. Ito ang mga dapat nating inaaral at tinatrabaho, hindi ang pekeng PI at questionableng tsatsya. Salamat kaayo, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat, Senator
Thank you,
Risa
Mr. President. Last but not the least, to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished lady from Taguig and Pateros, no other than our resident athlete, Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano. I move that she be recognized, Mr.
Our
President.
distinguished colleague, Senator Pia Cayetano, the representative of Taguig Pateros and the Republic of the Philippines is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just a very short co-sponsorship speech. Mr. President, as the Senate Committee Chair of the Committee on Sustainable Development, Goals, Innovation, Futures Thinking, we talk about sustainable development. We broadcast to the world, we show pictures of our beautiful landscape, seascape, and of course, the picture of modernization. But as they say, Mr. President, you can only determine truly how advanced or how developed a country is when you look at how they treat the most vulnerable in their society. So when we look at families who cannot even feed their children 3 meals a day, who struggle to put literally a roof over the head, where they live in shanties, they live, Mr. President, in these worn tarps that are used during political campaigns, di ba? After the campaign, you'll see na bubong na yan ng mga bahay, pader na yan ng kanilang barong-barong. This is how millions of people live in the Philippines, Mr. President. So when we take time dealing with political issues, it takes time away from dealing with the poorest of the poor who need our support to live a decent life. Mr. President, in our show, Cayetano in Action with Boy Abunda, we often tackle problems that include marital problems, nagbubugbugan na asawa, utang, minsan utang ng nanay sa anak na hindi na nag-usap ang nanay at anak for 3 years dahil sa utang, couples who separate dahil sa whatever conflict they have. 99%, Mr. President, the root of their problem is poverty. Sheer poverty. May daycare teacher na sinumbong ang isang nanay dahil hindi na pinapasok sa daycare ang kanyang anak. And the reason is, sobra siyang nahihiya dahil wala siyang pagkain na mabigay sa anak niya, papasok daw yung anak niya ng gutom. So sa kahihiyan, hindi niya lang niya pinapapasok yung anak niya, Mr. President. So all of these legal issues can be attributed to people having decent jobs and decent wages. And so I joined the Senate President and our colleagues in co-sponsoring this very important measure. It may not seem like a lot because it is really not that much, but I believe it paves the way in us recognizing that this cannot continue as it is. When His Honor, the Senate President, mentioned BARM, we do need to look into this and see how we can single out those areas that need more support, because it is just really how it is. I mean, when I traveled, and His Honor, the Senate President, and I are walking mates during our official trips, I've talked to our embassies and our host countries about their poverties in their countries. Their poverties, at least the countries I've visited, are different from our poverties. May bahay pa rin silang nauuwian. Pag may malamig, baka pinag-aawayan nila ng konti, yung heater hindi ganun kainit. Pero may trabaho naman. Yung trabaho siguro nila, kung 600 euro a month na maliit sa Europe, pero 600 times 60, that's 36,000 pesos. And here we're talking about hindi pa umaabot sa 15,000 pesos, Mr. President. So it's incomparable, but it is not acceptable that we continue this way. So I thank His Honor for prioritizing this measure. And as I said, I join our colleagues in supporting this measure. I will submit a more comprehensive sponsorship speech for the record, because I just really like to tie it into all the SDGs that are affected by this. Health, education. Hindi mo nga mapaaral yung anak mo dahil wala kang pambaon man lang para may makain siya. And you can't even begin to go to get health care dahil karamihan sa kanila, alam nila na kahit papano may aambag dahil yung sinasabing no balance billing, hindi naman actually 100% accurate. Meron din naman iaabono, depende rin sa sakit. So, tama sila na di bali na lang, wala na silang aasahan, and that is not how we want our Filipino people to feel. So again, my full support for this measure, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my dear colleague, my constant walking companion.
Thank you, Mr. President. And it's true, Mr. President, that it's about time that we need to act on this very important piece of legislation. So again, we thank you, Mr. President, our leader, Senator Zubiri, and our chairperson, Senator Jinggoy Estrada of the Senate Committee on Labor. Mr. President, to allow our colleagues to further study the measure, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2534 under Committee Report number 190. So move, Mr. President.
There being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, this juncture, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2386 under Committee Report number 99. This bill pertains to the Real Property Valuation and Assessment Act. I so move, Mr. President.
Yes, there being no objection, motion is approved.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status of the measure is that we are now in the period of interpellations and debate. And so with that, I move that we resume the period of interpellations and recognize the sponsor of the measure, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, and to interpellate our Deputy Majority Leader, Senator Mark Villar. So move, Mr. President.
Our distinguished colleague, the chairperson of the Committee on Ways and Means, Senator, the very hardworking Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, and to interpolate the equally hardworking Deputy Majority Floor Leader, Senator Mark Villar.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the consent of the good sponsor, may I be allowed to proceed with my interpellation?
Yes, more than willingly, Mr. President.
Yes, I just have a few questions relating to my work as a former DPWH Secretary and under the bill under the Build Then, which is now continuing under the Build Better More program of this administration. My question is, in Section 2 of the committee report, in item B, provides in the declaration policy that the bill is for the adoption of market value as the single real property valuation base for the assessment of real property-related taxes in the country and for the valuation of real property for various transactions by all government agencies. Is this correct, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. It's correct, Mr. President.
And in proposing as part of the policy direction of the bill, it was provided in Section 36, letter C, sub-item 3, that the provisions of Section 567 of the Republic Act number 10752 are amended insofar as they are consistent with the provisions of this bill. Is this correct, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. That's correct.
Thank you. As former Secretary of the DPWH, of course, I was tasked with the heavy responsibility of settling various right-of-way issues, acquisition problems that are governed by the Republic Act 10752, which while instrumental in facilitating the completion of several big-ticket projects, there are still numerous concerns that remain to be resolved in right-of-way issues, such as funding requirements and the reasonableness of the just compensation to be paid to the owners whose real properties are affected by the government project. In fact, the amendment of RA 10752 was actually proposed as a priority legislation for this Congress in the previous LEDAC meeting. So I may ask the good sponsor, what will now be the valuation that the national government will offer to negotiate for the right-of-way acquisition of the lands after the repeal of Section 5 of RA 10752?
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, what the bill envisions is to have a uniform valuation for all the different agencies. And based on our research, there are about 23 different agencies that conducts valuations using different methods. But for right-of-way acquisition, generally, Mr. President, they use the zonal valuation as well as the fair market value of that locality. So in this particular case, Mr. President, since we're harmonizing and uniforming the valuation, the bill will now have a single valuation for all the different agencies. So in short, the expropriation will use this valuation.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. President. So the valuation for the negotiated sale will now be based on the fair market value as stated in the subject bill as approved by the
Yes, Mr. President, correct.
Secretary of Finance, yes. Thank you, Mr. President. And we see that since the valuation is expected to increase, the government may be able to avoid the lengthy litigation to secure a possession before the court of law. My next question.
Correct, Mr. President.
Yes. My next question, Mr. President and good sponsor, in the case that the landowner refuses to negotiate, what will be the valuation that the government needs to deposit during the expropriation case to secure a writ of possession, since the bill will partially amend Section 6 of RA 10752?
Correct. Well, Mr. President, the government typically uses, for national government, the expropriation proceedings vary from local governments and national government. In the national government, they usually use the zonal valuation, but the zonal valuation now will be based on this fair market value that will be formulated by the local government unit. So in this particular case, the deposit will be based on the valuation generated by the SMVs, Mr. President, the Schedule of Market Values.
Thank you, Mr. President. There may be a need to further study the budgetary impact of the partial repeal of Section 6 of RA 10752, considering that the depositary requirement for expropriation in acquiring lands affected by government projects may result to an increase in the budgetary requirements of various national government agencies. This will change the deposit requirement for expropriation cases from 100% of BI or zonal value to 100% of fair market value. As the valuation will increase, then Congress must be reminded that during the committee deliberation of the budget of the DPWH, we were informed regarding the inadequacy of funds being given to facilitate the right-of-way requirements of government. The Congress must be ready to provide additional appropriation should the enactment of the RP-VARA result in the increase of the just compensation that the government needs to settle. For the body's information, the proposed budget of the DPWH for the right-of-way payment was 1.71 billion. If the RP-VARA will result to the increase in the compensation of the project-affected persons, the government must again review the timeline for the completion of the much-needed infrastructure as approved by the administration, as it may result in difficulty in acquiring the right-of-way for the project. May I ask the good sponsor, Mr. President, if the DPWH and the DOT were able to comment on this concern?
Yes, Mr. President, the DPWH were present, or was present during the hearing, Mr. President. But just to comment on the first on the statement of the good gentleman from Las Piñas. Typically in the expropriation proceedings, the deposit is based on the zonal valuation. I'm sure the good gentleman will know, being the former secretary of DPWH, or the zonal valuation or the fair market value. And typically, if the landowner will not agree yet on any, whether zonal or fair market value, litigation will ensue. And that process of litigation can take many years to solve. And that litigation will also create delays in the project, Mr. President. And if you unpack the reasoning, it's really because of the price that the landowner is demanding. And typically, the price is what he thinks is fair to him. So this addresses that potential delay by coming up with a fair market value that is based on the actual economic situation of that area. So in other words, it will not be arbitrary. It will be based on the latest transaction in that area, and that transaction will be based on will be used to determine the schedule of market value. And when the schedule of market value is determined, then that is now what government will be using to purchase your land or to make a deposit. So this bill aims to eliminate the delays, because the delays is also very costly for government, especially in big ticket projects.
Yes. Yeah. So I just hope that this addresses this concern is addressed, because it does have an impact. For instance, if in general the appraised value is higher than the zonal value, so if this is higher and the budget is insufficient to make a payment so that we can get the writ of possession, it might have an effect on the implementation of our government project. So I think that's just something that concerns me, coming from the sector of infrastructure implementation. At the same time, also, if we were to get a appraisal, we would have to get it from a GFI. And from my experience, the GFIs are already very busy with other. It takes time to get that appraisal from the GFI. Usually, depending on the needs, and usually there's a lot of cases in any single project. So. Based on that, I hope we can come up with. I will recommend some amendments that might rectify or maybe resolve the situation, so that the effect on our infrastructure projects, if any, will be minimal, Mr. President.
And definitely we would welcome amendments from the good gentleman from Las Piñas, being an expert in infrastructure as well as expropriation proceedings. But just to go back on the difference between the zonal and the appraised value, since the SMVs, or the schedule of market values, will be based on what we call the Philippine Valuation Standard, which is being used by appraisers.
Yes.
The zonal valuation, the schedule of market value, and the appraised value will be the same, because all of them are using the same standards as promulgated in the Philippine Valuation Standard. So in theory, there should be no difference between the schedule of market value, the zonal valuation, and the appraised value. So everything will be the same in terms of valuing the property.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. And maybe we also request for copies of the position papers of the various agencies, so that we can also study their comments regarding this legislation.
Yeah. We'll furnish the good gentleman the position papers.
That would be all, Mr. President. I end my interpellation. I would like to thank the good sponsor for his time and patience. To reiterate, I would like to discuss some proposed amendments to further improve the bill and fine-tune the bill at the appropriate time. Thank you very much.
We would welcome any refinements and improvements to the bill, especially coming from a former DPWH secretary who's very experienced in launching big ticket and very important national infrastructure projects. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I thank the two gentlemen. It was a joy to listen to you both. I learned a lot on your deliberation. Senator Jingo Estrada of the City of San Juan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As your chairperson of the Senate Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development, it is my honor to present today to this august chamber Senate Bill number 2534 under Committee Report number 190, entitled An Act Providing for a 100 pesos daily minimum wage increase for employees and workers in the private sector. This proposal is a consolidation of Senate Bill number 2002, filed by Senate President Mig Subiri, with Senators Ligarda, Binay, and Go as co-authors, and Senate Bill number 2018 by Senator Ramon Buong Revilla Jr. Consistent with the constitutional precepts to alleviate the living conditions of ordinary Filipinos through policies that provide for a rising standard of living and improved quality of life, particularly of the working class, by guaranteeing their right to a decent pay. It is the aim of this committee and the collective conscience of this Senate to update the minimum wage by 100 pesos for workers in the private sector. Under this measure, all employees in the private sector in the entire country, whether agricultural or non-agricultural, are entitled to 100 peso minimum wage increase. This would guarantee an increased daily pay for around 4.2 million minimum wage earners. Let me just give some retrospect. The last legislated wage hike that was implemented in the country dates back to 1989 with the enactment of Republic Act number 6727, or the Wage Rationalization Act, which effectively declared that wages would be set on a regional basis by the regional wage boards. To answer workers' clamor, Mr. President, almost all regional wage boards have issued wage orders last year to increase the minimum daily wage rates in their respective regions, ranging from 30 pesos to 89 pesos. And we are not stopping there. The Senate's effort to legislate an increase in minimum wages augments the wage increases already issued by the regional wage boards. Thus, after consideration of the existing socio-economic conditions and positions of various sectors, it is incumbent upon us to propose a daily pay hike to help alleviate the burden of Filipinos in the face of soaring prices of basic commodities and rising cost of living. We cannot turn a blind eye on the injustice to and the economic conditions of our workers, who are considered the lifeblood of our economy. Ginoong Pangulo, tapatin po natin ang kasulukuyang minimum wage sa iba't ibang rehiyon na nasa 306 pesos hanggang 610 pesos ay hindi sapat upang bumuhay ng kahit isang maliit na pamilya sa araw-araw. Computin po natin, Ginoong Pangulo. Halimbawa, 7,344 pesos ang buwan ng sahod na matatanggap ng manggagawa sa isang retail establishment na tumatanggap ng 306 pesos per day. Ikaltas mo pang SSS, Pag-ibig at PhilHealth, may tuturing na siyang mahirap sapagkat ang national poverty threshold ay 9,686 lamang. Samantala, ang pinakamataas na sahod na 610 pesos mula sa Kalakhang, Maynila o dito sa Metro Manila ay makakatanggap naman ng 14,640 pesos kada buwan. Mas mataas lamang ng kaunti sa near poor threshold na 12,400. While minimum wage in Metro Manila for the non-agricultural sector consistently recorded the highest basic pay in the country at 610 pesos per day, however, the actual daily pay is eroded by inflation. The real value of the minimum wage, which reflects the inflation-adjusted rates using the Consumer Price Index, has fallen to 514 pesos and 50 centavos in the capital as of July 2023, and further decreased to 504 pesos for October of 2024. And this scenario is replicated across all regions. Talagang nakakaawa ang ating mga manggagawa. Hindi pa rin talaga abot sa pangangailangan para mabuhay at matugunan ang pangangailangan ng mga manggagawa na may 5 miyembro ng pamilya. Sa kasulukuyang antas ng minimum wage, kulang ang budget para i-treat man lamang sa Jollibee o ibang restaurant ng kanilang pamilya, maski isang beses dahil ubos na sa pangunahin pangangailangan pa lamang. Bagamat ang inflation ay bumabagal, nasa 2.8% nitong January 2024, hindi ibig sabihin nito ay bumababa na rin ang presyo ng mga bilihin. Sa katunayan, ang rice inflation ay pumalo sa 22.6%, ang pinakamataas na antas mula March of 2009, at patuloy pa ang pagtaas ng ibang mga bilihin sa kabila ng patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng kuryente at gasolina. While we have seen inflation at a downward trend, economists expect that inflation headache from rising food prices will likely persist until 2025. The status quo simply cannot achieve this. But with this legislative push, this means that a typical family of 5 needs to work 2 full-time minimum wage jobs to earn a living wage. The current minimum wage is even further away from meeting the basic needs of workers' families. It was estimated that a family of 5 needs at least 8,379 pesos per month to meet just their basic food requirements. That translates to about 280 pesos for food expenses alone in 2021. But in reality, Mr. President, this amount seems not enough considering the current prices of basic commodities. Ginoong Pangulo, sa bigas pa lamang, lagpas 50 pesos na ang 1 kilo. Higit pa hindi pa magandang klase yan. Dagdagan mo pa ng lulutuing karne o gulay o pambili ng lutong ulam sa karinderya. Mr. President, even with this wage hike bill, the difference between the minimum wage and the cost of living or the family living wage is glaring. But this is the most that we can propose, balancing the welfare of workers and businesses. Bagamat kinikilala natin ang wage hikes na ipinatupad kamakailan ng regional wage boards, tila nabura na ito ng patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng pangunahing bilhin. Kaya naman natin minumungkahi ito. Ang pagtaas ng sahod ng mga manggagawa sa mas dissenting level ay napapanahon at talagang kailangan para ipantay kahit papano sa pagtaas ng presyo ng ating mga bilihin. Pinakinggan po natin ang hinaing ng ating mga manggagawa sa matagal ng humihiling ng aumento. At ito na ang tugon ng inyong Senado sa mga panawagang yon. This statutory increase, if passed into law, would also result in increased purchasing power and would stimulate economic activity, thereby contributing to national growth. This wage hike bill would also help attain our goal of reducing poverty incidence rates in the coming years to have a prosperous, predominantly middle-class society where no one is poor by 2040. Under the Philippine Development Plan, the government is targeting to reduce the poverty incidence rate to 13.2% by 2025 and to 9% by 2028. Mr. President, recognizing the struggles of low-income households that are bearing the brunt of high prices, this initiative demonstrates the Senate's belief that our workers who are creating value for the companies deserve a dignified wage and ultimately respect. Bilang pinuno ng Senate Committee on Labor, naniniwala po tayo na para sa ordinaryong manggagawa, makakatulong ang taas sahod na ito para pambili ng bigas at ulam, pamasahe at pandagdag maski sa maliit na halaga sa pang-araw-araw na gastusin. We also hope that after this legislative initiative, our regional wage boards would work expeditiously and be more sympathetic, proactive, and responsive to the needs and plight of our workers. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Thank you, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, we thank the good gentleman from San Juan for sponsoring this very important piece of legislation. We have been waiting and excited to deliberate this particular measure, especially the Senate President of the Republic of the Philippines. And so I move that he be recognized to co-sponsor the measure. I so move, Mr. President.
Our Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri is recognized to deliver his sponsorship speech.
Maraming salamat to our Majority Floor Leader, to our Senate President, the Deputy Majority Floor Leader, Presiding Officer, to all my colleagues, lalong-lalo na sa aking mahal na kapatid ni Senator Jingoy Estrada, na alam ko napakalaki ng pressure sa kanya ng mga manggagawa, hindi sa manggagawa, pero sa mga may-ari ng mga kumpanya na hindi po to i-take up. But Mr. President, today is a historic day. It is my honor to co-sponsor our bill legislating a 100 peso wage increase for all minimum wage earners in the private sector. Ever since we filed our bill for a 150 peso across-the-board wage increase, araw-araw na pong tanong sa akin ng mga ating mga kababayan, Senator Migs, kailan ba ninyo ipapasa ang pagtaas ng aming sahod? Halos kung saan po ako pumunta. Kasi naalala nila po, last year, halos araw-araw po tayo na sa news, kasama ng mga senador, na ang pangako natin, itataas po natin ang kanilang sahod. Lalo lang pong lumakas ang pananawagan nito at uminit ang usapin nung uminit po ang usapin ng People's Initiative at Charter Change. Marami nang nagtatanong din sa akin, bakit hindi lang unahin ang pagtaas ng sahod? Dito mismo sa Senado, nagkaroon na po ng rally sa labas, ang sigaw, no to chacha, yes to wage increase. Nung isang araw lang po yan. Gusto ko lang pong sabihin sa kanila, naririnig po natin ang sigaw ng bayan. Naririnig po kayo ng Senado. Ang good news po, habang dumadaan ang ating minimum wage increase bill sa committee ni Senator Jingoy Estrada at mga TWG dito sa Senado, unti-unti na rin nakadama ng ginhawa ang ating mga manggagawa dahil sa pagtaas ng minimum wages sa ating mga rehiyon. mula nung itunulak natin ng 150 peso wage increase nung huling Marso, sunod-sunod ng kumilos ang ating regional wage boards at nagdeklara ng kani-kanilang pagtaas ng minimum wage. But I put credit to the Senate because if we did not make that noise, kung hindi po tayo nag-ingay, kung hindi po tayo nagsalita, ay baka hindi pa gumalaw ang mga regional wage boards. Una na dyan, ang pagtaas ng wages sa NCR. Tinaas po ng 40 pesos noong July. Mula 35 hanggang 50 pesos naman ang dagdag sa minimum wage sa Calabarzon at depende sa sektor. 30 to 35 naman po pesos ang dinagdag sa Ilocos Region, 30 pesos sa Cagayan Valley, 40 pesos sa Central Luzon, 30 pesos sa Western Visayas, 33 pesos sa Central Visayas, 30 pesos hanggang 40 pesos sa Zamboanga Peninsula at 35 sa Soc-Sargen. Effective na rin ang Eastern Visayas na 30 peso minimum wage increase at noong December may dagdag na po ng 30 pesos ang mga manggagawa sa Cordillera Region at Bicol Region at 40 pesos naman sa Mimaropa. At sa ating mga kapatid sa Mindanao, mayroon din po tayong 35 peso increase sa Caraga and 33 pesos na increase sa Northern Mindanao. So nagpapasalamat po kami sa Regional Wage Boards at sa National Wages Productivity Commission for acting on the call of our people for better wages across the country. Pero mga kababayan ko, alam naman po natin, hindi sapat ang dagdag na 30 to 40 pesos lang ng ating minimum wage earners. Hindi pa nga ito sapat sa pagbili ng 1 kilong bigas na ngayon ay umabot na ng 60 pesos. So biro mo, yung dagdag, hindi naman pwede makabili ng 1 kilong bigas. Ay kawawa naman po ang ating mga kababayan. Makakatulong itong pag-akyat ng regional wage boards, pero mas malaki pa rin ang pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayan. Hindi po tama na presyo lang ng bilihin ang tumataas. Kailangan sahod rin. Hindi tama na ang kumpanya lang ang kumikita. Kailangan ang manggagawa din po ay kumita. Ang sabi nga ng isang kaibigan ko, share lang. Di ba? Anong ibig ko sabihin? Nung train law, ibinaba po natin ang corporate income tax from 32% to 25%. Ang laki po ng pagbaba nitong corporate income tax ng mga korporasyon. Hindi rin po tayong pumayag nung gusto nilang itaas ang dividends tax para mas malaki din po ang kita ng mga may-ari nito mga kumpanyang ito. Ngayon po, sisingilin naman natin ang mga may-ari ng kumpanyang ito. Dahil binaba po natin ang inyong corporate income tax, hindi na lang tayo pumayag sa pagtaas ng dividends tax, bakit lang kayo lamang ang dayaman sa ginawa po natin mga hakbang? Kailangan, dapat tulungan din natin ang kapakanan ng ating manggagawa. Kaya patuloy po natin itinutulak itong legislated wage increase. Pero dahil po sa pag-aksyon ng mga regional wage boards, mag-a-adjust na rin tayo konti. Sa imbis na 150 pesos across the board increase na itinulak natin nung una sa Senado, gagawin na lang po natin itong 100 muna. Halos pareho naman po ito sa itataas ng sweldo if we add this 100 pesos minimum wage, mandated minimum wage in our regions, and we add the increases done by the wage boards. Ang lumalabas po, 130 to 150 pesos pa rin ang increase para sa ating mga kababayan. Ito na po ang ating kompromiso. Ang middle ground ika nga na makakatulong sa ating mga manggagawa, nakakayanin pa rin ilang ibigay ng ating mga negosyante. Lalo na sa mga micro, small at medium enterprises. Dahil ayaw naman natin silang maperwisyo at baka magsira ang mga negosyong na to. Kung itulak pa rin kasi natin ng 150 peso wage increase on top of the regional wage increases, ay aalma na talaga ang business sector. At baka mawala ng pag-asang maipasa itong panukala dito sa ating Kongreso. Pero umaapila rin tayo sa ating mga negosyante na gawin nating mas competitive ang pagsahod natin dito sa ASEAN. Marami kasi nagsasabi sa akin noon, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President rather. Ang sabi po nila, bakit ako na gano'n? Mr. President, ang sabi po nila sa atin ay, we are one of the highest wages. 10 years po ago, sabi nila, we are one of the highest wages in the region. A quick check of the facts, Mr. President, lahat po sila ay nag-adjust na. Tayo na lang ang naiwan. So now, if you look at the region, tayo isa sa mga pinakamababa in terms of wages sa ating mga kababayan. And look at our regions, our neighbors in our region. Minimum wage in Jakarta, Indonesia is already 727 pesos. That is compared to our NCR rate of only 610 pesos. This is why we are continuing to push for minimum wage increase despite pushback from some sectors. Doon sa ibang bansa, pwede bang ma-expand ng konti yan? Yung Malaysia ay 758 pesos a day ang Malaysia. Jakarta is 724 pesos a day. Yung Singapore is already minimum wage monthly. 30 plus thousand pesos yata, Mr. President, ang sa Singapore. At ang Vietnam, ang balita sa akin ng ambassador sa Vietnam, magkakaroon din sila ng wage increase. Dahil sa dami na pong foreign direct investment na pumasok doon, pati sila, umaalma na ang kanilang mga manggagawa. At habang itinutulak natin ang 100 peso minimum wage increase para sa buong bansa, siyempre, patuloy natin kakalampagin ang regional wage boards sa natitira pang mga riyon sa Mindanao na hindi pa nabibigyan ng dagdag sahod. I think there are still 2 or 3 regions in Mindanao na hindi pa sila nabibigyan ng sahod. Ang sahod po nila na yon, for example in BARM, is only 300 pesos a day. Mr. President, 300 pesos a day. How can you survive with 300 pesos a day? Bakit ang Jollibee ba nila doon ay mas mura sa Jollibee dito sa Manila? Ang gasolina ba nila doon ay mas mura ba sa gasolina dito sa Manila? Ang pamasahe nila sa pagsakay sa jeepney at bus, mas mura ba doon kaysa dito? Hindi po, Mr. President. Pare-pareho lang ang presyo ng pagkain, ng kuryente. Mas mahal pa nga ang kuryente sa Mindanao na umabot na 14 pesos per kilowatt hour. Dito sa Metro Manila, 9 pesos per kilowatt hour. Tapos yung katumbas na sahod nila, Mr. President, is 300 to 350 pesos a day. Hanggang na yun, hindi pa inaaksyonan ng regional wage boards. Kaya hindi nyo po masisi ang Senado na gumalaw para sa ating mga manggagawa. Now is time that we push for the benefits of our labor sector. With this bill, we hope to take the vital step in recognizing the worth of our workers. Ang mga manggagawa po ang pundasyon ng ating lipunan at karapatan nila na kumita ng disenteng sahod para magkaroon ng disenteng buhay ang ating mga manggagawa. So I enjoin our colleagues to support us in the passage of this bill. Let us make this a statement of the Senate, an action of the Senate for our people. Aksyonan natin ang tunay na panawagan ng bayan. Mabuhay po ang Republika ng Pilipinas, mabuhay po ang ating mga manggagawa. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, our Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm happy and proud of this institution, especially that we heard our Senate President's very passionate co-sponsorship speech, Mr. President. I'd like to just give my short co-sponsorship speech, if I may, Mr. President.
Yes, the Majority Leader is
Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. President. I will just ask Mr. President that the whole speech of this representation be inserted into the records, but I just cannot help but acknowledge and thank our Senate President Mig Zubiri, the principal author also of this very important piece of legislation, Senator Jinggoy Estrada, the chairperson of the Committee on Labor, sa kanya pong pagtalakay sa panukalang nagtataas ng sweldo ng ating mga masisipag at magigiting na manggagawa. Alam niyo po, Ginoong Pangulo, lagi kong ini-example yung pinakapayak na produkto na kinakain ng ating mga kababayan sa 4 na sulok ng Pilipinas. Yung po yung noodles, Mr. President. Natempt akong sabihin yung Lucky Me. Yun ho yung pinaka-basic, pero pare-pareho po yung presyo kahit saan kang lupalop ng Pilipinas, pero hindi pare-pareho ang sweldo. Ang nakakalungkot, kawawa ho talaga yung mga kababayan nating naiiwan, lalo na hindi natin sinasabi na hindi epektibo ang regional wage boards. But kung titingnan po talaga natin, malayong malayo doon sa living wage. Kaya po isang karangalan na maging co-sponsor ng Senate Bill number 2534 sa ilalim po ng Committee Report number 190 na nagbibigay dagdag na 100 pesos daily minimum wage. Alam nyo, Ginoong Pangulo, ayon po sa pinakahuling poverty statistics ng Philippine Statistics Authority, yung monthly poverty threshold po ng isang pamilya na may 5 miyembro ay 13,797 pesos kada buwan. Ito po ay para matustusan ang kanilang mga pangangailangan para po sa pagkain, anumang mag-a-arise na pangangailangan nila at iba pa. Mas mataas po ito ng 14.2% sa naitalang 12,082 pesos monthly poverty threshold sa taong 2021, Ginoong Pangulo. Kaya naman po, yung panukalang dagdagan ng 100 piso ang minimum wage ay maghahatid ng ginhawa kahit papaano. Kahit nga po, hindi pa sapat. Pero kahit papaano, pwede na, makakatulong na rin sa ating mga kababayang Pilipino. Muli, Ginoong Pangulo, isa po itong positibong hakbang upang makamit natin ang pangako ng ating minamahal na konstitusyon na magkaroon ng living wage ang bawat pamilyang Pilipino. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo. At this juncture, I move that we recognize our Senate President Pro Tem to co-sponsor the measure.
Maraming salamat to our Majority Floor Leader ng puso niya ay para sa manggagawa, former Chairperson of the Committee of Labor. Our Senate President Pro Tempore, Senator Lauren Legarda is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I commend you for bringing this into immediate attention. And of course, the chairman of the Committee on Labor, Senator Jinggoy Estrada. Thank you to the Majority Leader as well for concurring with the leadership of the Senate. It is my privilege and honor to co-sponsor Senate Bill 2534, an act providing for a 100 pesos daily minimum wage increase for employees and workers in the private sector. It is very clear that inflation has hurt the labor sector and most families do not find the means to make ends meet. It is high time we increase the minimum wage across the board in the private sector to alleviate the financial strain on our families. By ensuring that families earn a fair wage, we can address concerns about basic necessities, and this will enable families to enjoy more fulfilling and stable lives. And this, I believe, is a matter of economic justice and basic human dignity. While the cost of living continues to rise, our laborers find it difficult to keep up with it, and this leads to individuals not being able to provide food on their table, a basic need, not being able to study even if basic education is free, even if higher education is free in state institutions, and also not being able to afford healthcare even if we already have PhilHealth, or not being able to live in their own homes. And by increasing the minimum wage, there is a chance to hopefully lift individuals out of abject poverty. There is a chance for them to be more productive, to pay more taxes, to spend more in our economy, to be able to live a life that they deserve. We cannot ignore the plight of our workers. They are the ones carrying this economy, and we must protect them at all costs. We must not tolerate inequality, injustice, and poverty. And this is why we urgently must pass this measure. Thank you for your leadership, Mr. President. Thank you to the Committee on Labor, and I hope that this is a measure that the Senate as an institution must prioritize and pass before the Holy Week break. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you, Senate President Pro Temp Lauren Legarda. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the gentleman from Davao and Batangas, no other than Senator Christopher Bongo. I move that he be recognized.
Our distinguished colleague from Davao City and Batangas Province, Senator Christopher Bongo is recognized.
Mr. President, as one of the co-authors of this measure, I rise today to co-sponsor and express my full support for to the measure providing 100 pesos daily minimum wage increase for employees and workers in the private sector. Mr. President, kabalikat ng ating tungkulin na magserbisyo sa publiko ay isang isulong ang mandato ng saligang batas na maglaan ng maayos na trabaho, patas na benepisyo at pasweldo at pantay na oportunidad para sa lahat ng Pilipino. Sa nagdaang taon, marami sa mga kababayan natin ang nawalan ng trabaho dahil sa pandemya. Marami sa mga business sectors natin ang nahinto at nagsara, kaya't marami sa kanila ang nawalan ng hanap buhay. Dagdag pa rito ang patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin sa merkado na nagbibigay pasakit sa bulsa ng mga mahirap nating kababayan. In fact, Mr. President, a survey conducted by the SWS from September to October of last year revealed that around 13.2 million families considered themselves as poor. This is higher than the 12.5 million estimated in June 2023. Totoo po na dahan-dahan nang bumubukas ang ating ekonomiya at marami na rin po ang nakakabalik sa kanilang mga trabaho at hanap buhay. Ngunit hirap pa rin ang mga ordinaryong Pilipinong itawid ang araw-araw na gastusin dahil sa inflation at mababang sweldo. Mr. President, unahin natin ang kapakanan ng mga mahirap. Dapat walang magutom, dapat maramdaman nila ang pagbangon ng ekonomiya tungo sa mas ligtas at komportableng buhay pagkatapos po ng pandemya. The measure at hand serves as our response to the mandate of the Constitution to alleviate the living conditions of the ordinary Filipinos through policies that provide for a decent and humane standard of living and improved quality of life, particularly of the working class, by ensuring the right of labor to its just share in the fruits of production, to guarantee the workers' right to a living wage, and to promote social justice. Moreover, it is also the policy of social justice to strike a balance between the interests of the employers and workers. This bill is not meant to add burden to our employers but to strike a balance as what social justice means. Dapat po ay may pantay ding pagkilala sa karapatan at kapakanan ng lahat ng sektor sa lakas sa paggawa. Sa mga mayayaman, kung hindi naman po kayo malulugi, ipamahagi niyo naman po ang inyong kita sa mga mahirap nating kababayan. Sa mga isang kahig, isang tuka. Mr. President, ako po ay patuloy na susuporta at titindig para sa kapakanan ng bawat manggagawang Pilipino. Our march towards full and inclusive economic recovery must be felt by everyone, especially our ordinary Filipino workers. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Christopher Bong.
Thank you, Mr. President. Una sa lahat, allow me to congratulate our colleague, Senator Raffy Tulfo, for bringing this to our attention. Matagal ng problema ito at parati natin ito nakikita and we're just maybe taking it for granted. Lalo na ngayon meron ng mga aksidenteng 4 sa isang lugar. I hope wala po namatay, Senator Tulfo, doon sa insidente.
Fortunately, wala pa po. Okay.
Ito po, Mr. President, na meron akong bisita a few months ago, pinsan ko na based in the US. Dala niya yung kanyang 13-year-old son. Ang sabi nga niya sa akin, look at the black spaghetti. Sabi ko, ano yun? What is that black spaghetti? Yung term black spaghetti. The wires. Napansin ng batang laki sa Amerika na yung mga wires nga natin, buhol-buhol at nakikita niya na nagsanga-sanga, buhol-buhol, siguro walang order. Kaya ang napatawag ay black spaghetti. Ngayon, if they lead to vehicular accidents already, Mr. President, posible bang fire hazards din po ito, Mr. President? Makukonsider di ba natin mga fire hazards din ito?
Mr. President, that is precisely right. Marami na pong mga incidents in the past, yung mga kable na kabulbul sa kalye, nag-cause po ng accident like fire. May mga bahay na nasunog at meron na po mga na-electrocute, but not on this particular case that I did my privilege speech on. Marami na po. You're correct, Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, siguro patanong lang natin sa ating speaker, sa research po niya on the subject matter, masasabi na ba niyang alam na natin sino dapat ang in charge dito para ayusin itong so-called black spaghetti, Mr. President?
Mr. President, thank you very much for that question. Yeah, as a matter of fact, naka-encounter po kami ng tinatawag nating pagpapasapasahan because when we called the MMDA, because itong problema ito ay sa kalye sa Quezon City, na dapat responsibilidad ng MMDA because meron tayong batas ng MMDA ang nagme-make sure na yung safety ng mga motorista. But the MMDA said it's not our jurisdiction. Nagugas kamay po sila at itinuro po nila doon sa telco. Actually, Mr. President, wala pa tayong clear na na batas para sabihin who should be responsible dito sa mga spaghetti na nagiging salot yan sa mga kalye. Ito ho ba ay telco, in the case kung ito ay from telecommunication companies? Ito ba ay yung engineering office ng city na kung saan nandun yung spaghetti na wires? Ito ho ba ay MMDA or DPWH? Wala pa po eh. That's why sana po pag nagkaroon tayo ng hearing tungkol dito, we have to come up with something where meron tayong i-delegate na isang agency na would take the lead and be responsible sa mga problemang ito. Para kung may nangyari, sila pong sisihin at wala nang iba pa.
Tama po, importante. Nagawa ko rin yung comment na yun sa isang hearing ni Senator Risa Ontiveros na napansin ko nga rito sa Pilipinas yung if it seems like it's a practice not to pinpoint the ultimate person or agency or entity responsible for a certain act. Kaya if we do not do that, nangyari, turuan. Nagtuturuan. So, I hope na pag na-hear na po itong subject matter na ito, ang resulta talaga natin, we can come up with a clear policy na sana ang resulta ay hindi shared power. Pag shared power, patay, wala na naman mangyari. Parang interagency na naman po yan na mga shared power. We must lodge the responsibility to a very specific agency, entity, or person, Mr. President.
I agree with you, Mr. President. To give an example, this was a few months ago. Meron po na aksidente na isang bata sa isang probinsya. He got electrocuted. dahil yung wire, umuulan po yun, nakalawit-lawit sa may kalsada, namatay po siya. Ngayon, hindi po inaako nung may-ari nung electric company kasi sabi niya, dapat daw yung LGU, dapat na monitor ng LGU na may sakop ng lugar. Sabi naman ng LGU, hindi naman kami dapat yan, dapat yung police. Kasi naisumbong na raw yan. So lahat silang tuturuan.
Tuturuan, opo. Sige po, kung nangyari sa Amerika to, I think yung aggrieved party would have sued the local government. Ganun na mangyari. So, dito, although of course, the local governments can be sued. Dito yata ang local government ng Taal, Taal Batangas, tanungan natin kung tama ba yung theory ko. The local government can be sued. And unfortunately, kung manalo yata ng monetary claim yung plaintiff, yung execution ang problema. Paano naman niya ma-execute? So maybe we can also look at that concept, Mr. President, the suability of our local government units and other government agencies. But we have to provide also now the mechanism na yung mananalo sa kaso ay hindi pirik victory ito. Dapat may actual makukuha siya from the government agency na kinasuhan niya.
I agree with you, Mr. President. The difference between other countries like the US, Western countries, and the Philippines, doon kasi pag may mga pabayaan ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno or even companies for that matter, pwede madimanda. That's why these companies, meron sila palaging insurance na binibili, liability insurance. Dito sa atin, hindi mo pwede. You cannot sue the city government, you cannot sue the barangay, you cannot sue the utility companies or any agency for that matter. Ang gagawin na lang itong mga naagrabyado, it's either magsumbong sa akin or magmakaawa na sana sila kawaan at sila ibibigyan ng compensation. Unlike sa other countries na pwede na idemanda kung sino karapat-dapat imanda and then in the end, nanalo sila, bibigyan sila malaking compensation. That's why nag-iingat po ang marami sa mga ahensya ng gobyerno at iba pa yung mga ahensya doon sa ibang bansa.
Sa ibang bansa po. That's why ang instruction ko nga sa staff ko, aralin yung the suability of the government agencies and then pag manalo, how will the monetary award be satisfied? Yun po. Kasi dito, ang alam ko, papadaan mo pa sa COA, pa-approve mo sa COA. In case of the national government, daan mo pa sa COA, and then palagay mo pa sa GAA. Ganun po kabusisi. So we have to find a way na to make it efficient, more efficient, this judicial course. Hopefully, hindi na dumating doon, pero dapat parating may recourse to judicial processes, Mr. President.
Mr. President, kung pwede ko lang maidugtong itong another case ito, pero medyo similar. That's why I'm passing a bill na kung saan i-require ko po lahat ng mga kontraktor na bago silang magbungkal ng lupa o umpisahan yung project na nakuha na sa DPWH, they should buy an insurance for that particular project. Kasi sa ngayon, ang dami ko na pong mga kaso na nakatiwangwang lang yung mga proyekto nila, naging pabaya sila, may mga nasugatan, namatay pa. And yet, walang pambayad yung contractor. So ang nangyayari po, yung mga biktima o pamilya ng biktima, kulang na lang po lumuhod doon sa contractor. And kuminsan yung contractor, tatalikod, kuminsan suplado pa, hagisan na po ng barya, tama na yan, ilang kaya namin. Pero kung ni-require mga ito na magkaroon ng insurance, then the insurance will take over kung sakali man may nangyari. In this way, later, itong insurance company, iba-blacklist ito mga pabaya na mga contractor, tataas ng kanilang premium, magpapakatino na po sila ang maging result.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sana nga sa hearing lumabas po ng lahat ng ideas na ito at natin talagang maging enforceable. Siguro, Mr. President, di ba yung black spaghetti, so ang isang remedy doon, i-rationalize yung use, ng shared use ng mga poles, no? And then, may nabanggit po yung ating speaker na si Architect Palafox. Ano ba yung suggestion niya? Underground, pero meron na ba tayong idea? Ano ba yan? Is it more expensive to bury the wires underground than to let them hang over polls, Mr. President?
So, umpisa pa lang kasi hindi pa ho talaga nakasetup. Well, of course, gagastos po tayo, Mr. President. Medyo may kamahalan yan. Pero pag tumagal-tagal na, nagawa natin, nagkaroon ng proper setup, mas makakamura at mas safe pa, Mr. President.
Okay. So mukhang mas safe nga kasi, well, less of a fire hazard na lang. Less of a fire hazard na siguro yun. And then, of course, yung mga aksidente na tatamaan sa leeg, yung ating mga riders. So with that, Mr. President, let me congratulate again our Speaker, Senator Raffy Tulfo, for bringing this before our attention, Mr. President. Kailangan natin tugunan itong mga ganitong problema na pang everyday na encounter, and before they cost lives. Although I'm sure these have cost lives. Salamat na lang sa examples ng ating speaker, hindi nag-cost ng lives pero severe injuries din iba ron, and of course the trauma that's a near-death experience, Mr. President. So thank you for bringing this to our attention, Senator Raffy Tulfo. Thank you.
Thank you. Sana pwede ko rin maidagdag kung mag-hearing po kayo, Senator Raffy, yung mga postes sa kalsada na hindi pa nila tinatanggal. Bago na yung sementado na yung daan, may poste sa gitna dahil wala daw budget ang kooperatiba para mailipat yung sa shoulder ng kalsada. So it's actually a major road hazard. Talagang nabubunggo yan ng mga tao, motor, tao. Pag sa probinsya, Sir Rafi, makikita mo yan. Maraming, alam din ni Senator Sherwin yan, nagkaroon yata ng hearing sa dati dyan about that issue of poles, electricity poles na nasa gitna ng kalsada dahil hindi naililipat ng electric cooperatives.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
For today, our Honorable Chairman Juni Kua. Mr. Robles, represented by Attorney Pagano, Attorney Jimenez, Mr. Roger Ramirez. With the DICT, representing USEC Batapa Sige, is Mr. Paraiso, Legal Affairs of the DICT. For the BIR, is represented by Mr. John Tibayan, Legal and Legislative Division of the BIR. For the OGCC, represented by Assistant Government Counsel Katrina Reyes. For Batangas City, represented by Attorney Jose Rica Blanca and Ms. Ditas Aguado Rivera. And for the Polai is Ms. Evelyn Javier again, Mr. Astrid Jose Bana, Mr. Clarice Imperial, and with regards to the Pacific Online Systems, it's Ms. Angelina Dinglasan, with the including Mr. Sandy Salimbangon. With the Pacific, again also with the Pacific Online Systems, Mr. Christopher Villaflor. With the APO production unit is Mr. Medina Cue. And with the DTM print and label specialist, Mr. Kingsley Robertson Oleong. Your Honor, can we have them swear first?
Yes, go ahead.
Those who were not able to take the oath the past two hearings, can you please stand up? Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this public hearing? Thank you. Your Honor.
Kanina, ito po ay continuation sa mga nakadang hearing para sagutin po yung katanungan ng marami sa mga naglalaro ng loto tungkol po sa integrity ng Lotto Games. Meron bang pandaraya o wala? That we have to find out today, right here, right now. Nung last hearing, I talked to the BIR and the PCSO na yung BIR will submit to us yung taxes paid records ng mga taxes that were paid by the Lotto winners. Samples from September, October, November. Ang mangyari po, pagbabanggain natin, ilang games ang tinamaan, for example, sa buwan ng September, at ilang taong tumama, at magkanong binayad na tax o taxes. At ibabangga po natin yan sa record ng PCSO. Andito ba ang BIR? BIR, do we
Mr.
have
Chair.
those documents, records?
Mr. Chair, we have a summary report po. Kasi po ang of total taxes paid and kung ilan pong mga empleyado, kung ilan pong winners ang may tin and walang tin po.
Sandali lang. Nasaan po si Chairman? General Manager? No, si General Manager ng PCSO.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, GM Robles sent a letter that he cannot attend today. However, I have with me the documents
No,
required.
just the presence muna. Tatanungin ko, ba't wala po siya rito?
Wala po.
Bakit po?
Based on his letter to you, Mr. Chair, yesterday, he said that he has other commitments today.
And what is that commitment?
Actually, Mr. Chair has several meetings with local government officials.
LGUs, are those more important than the hearing? Do you think? Today?
No, Your Honor, except that he sent the officials who are capable to answer the questions, Mr. Chair.
I'll get back to you later. So, Attorney Tibayan of the BIR, so you have those records, Attorney? And what are those records? Ano pong sinasabi doon? Ano pong nakapaloob sa mga record na yan? Yan po ba ay pwede natin ibangga doon sa record ng PCSO? And PCSO, do you have the counterpart records of what the BIR has? Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can we see that?
Mr. Chair, what we have is from July 2023, actually until September po, 2020.
July, August, September, 3 months. Sa loob ng 3 buwan pong yun, ilan pong laro ang tinamaan?
Kasi po, pag mag-file po sila, Mr. Chair, hindi namin alam kung ilang games. Total
Okay,
amount
sige.
po na...
Ilan ang total amount paid? Ilang tao po ang nag-file ng para magbayad ng 20% tax sa kanilang tinamaan na laro?
Total po na nag-file, total taxpayers po or winners involved po ay 8,192.
8,000 winners?
8,192 po for lowest period po.
8,192
192. July,
winners.
August, September po.
Okay. July, August, ang dami palang tumatama.
Ito po yung yung return period po is filed sa amin ng July, August, and September.
So, sa loob ng 3 months, 8,192.
8,192 po.
Hindi,
total
ang gusto ko lang is yung malalaking games. Huwag na yung mga tres.
Hindi po namin, sir, kasi pag sa form po, isang, form po, tapos yung total na panalo, naka-lump sum.
Teka muna. Ano ba yung mga binabayaran lang na kailangan magbayad ng tax sa mga games? Ano mga games ito?
Basta po yung beyond, wait lang po, check ko lang po.
Ang interesado lang po kasi sana kami dito, yung 642, 645, 649, 655, and 650, is that 58? Yung 5 lang.
Basta po yung beyond 10,000 po na winnings, lahat po yan kasama po sa return nila sa fina-file po sa amin. Kasi po yung 10,000 and below, exempt po from final tax on winnings.
Kaya nga, pero pwede bang yung kukunin ko na lang yung mga games na nabanggit ko?
Hindi po kasi siya nakadeclare sa return yung games po. Basta po, for the whole month po, ang mangyayari, lahat ng panalo, i-add po nila yan, tapos i-file po sa amin ng isang base amount.
Teka muna, magulo. Hindi. Dapat, bawat isang game, halimbawa 642, may nanalo dyan, binubukod, 642, 645, 649. Nakabukod dyan doon sa mga 10,000 and above. Yung sa mga sweat dress, or sweat dress ba yun, ang tawag yung mga ibang games?
Pag ganun po, meron kaming parang alpha list na sinasubmit po sila. So,
okay, so you have that alpha list? Yung nabanggit ko lang ng mga games,
sige
doon
po,
ako interested. Kasi
access ko lang po.
doon may suspecha ng pandaraya eh.
Opo, medyo po, ilalay, nasa USB po kasi. I-access ko po sa laptop po para...
Okay. Attorney Pagano,
Yes, Mr.
meron po kayong records ng mga nanalo
Yes.
ng mga games na tinanong ko kanina?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ilan po?
Actually, Mr. Chair, we received a subpoena duces tecum yesterday. The first requirement is the name of lotto winners and the games they won from July 1 to January 30, 2024. Regarding the names of the lotto winners, Mr. Chair, and the games they won, it is in a sealed envelope and I will turn over to the committee, Mr. Chair, because this involves already the data of the winners.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay.
As to number 2, the records of tax payment, as BIR stated, we are submitting, Your Honor, the alpha list. We have July, in compliance with the subpoena, Mr. Chair, we have the payments for July, August, September, October, November, December 2023. As for January 30, 2024, Mr. Chair, we still do not have that because we're
And I
still
understand.
filing.
So, doon muna siguro sa July, August, and September. Meron po kayong
Yes,
kopya noon.
Yes, we have the date. Actually, Mr. Chair, it's called the alpha list,
Okay.
as mentioned by the BIR. So we have all of that here, Mr. Chair. We are submitting that also in compliance with the subpoena.
So, BIR, yung alpha list ng PCSO in reference to the month of July, August, September ng winners at doon sa mga nabanggit ko mga games, yun ang pagbabanggain natin. Kalimutan mo rin mga 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 winners. Doon lang po sa mga jackpot para mas mapabilis pa rin tayo. Okay ba sa yun? And I need those records. Kung hindi ka pa ready ngayon, sa susunod na hearing so next week, I need that.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Para I think yung binabanggit po niyang alpha list, hindi po yung sinasubmit niya sa amin. So it's the same document po.
Pero pwede ba natin hiwalay na yung mga maliliit na games na tinamaan? Gusto ko doon na sa particular na 5 laro.
Sige po, check po namin.
Kasi
yung
doon pong may suspecha na dayaan eh. Doon sa mga sweat trash, yung mga 10,000, 20,000, hindi yun eh. Hindi yun sinususpecha na may pandaray. Siguro meron, pero mas interesado sila doon sa malalaking laro. Can we have those records?
Okay po, Mr. Chair.
Can you produce that siguro by next week?
Okay, sige po, Chair. Check po namin.
For now, we will get those records. Okay, submit to the committee para ma-review na namin.
Mr. Chair, also inside the sealed envelope would be the jackpot winners as requested last hearing, Mr. Chair. The names are here, as well as the amounts.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't worry, we will protect those names. Hindi namin,
Thank
we will treat it as confidential.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Naintindihan namin yan. Yung sa amin lang, pag nakuha na namin yung records na kailangan namin, pagbabanggayin yung BIR at sa PSSO, din babalik din namin sa inyo. Of course. Okay, so BIR next week, pwede na? Meron na tayo yan?
Sir, pwede rin kami makingi ng ano nila. Actually, we sent a
Okay, sige.
request
Bibigyan namin kayo ng kopya, yung
Yes
bigay
po,
ng BIR.
opo. Tapos, pwede po kaming gumawa ng report kung tama po yung information.
Exactly, thank you.
Sige po.
Now we're talking. Sige, titingnan nyo kung tama ba, o tumutugma ba. Pag hindi tumutugma, agad-agad sabihin nyo sa akin. Okay? Thank you very much. Now, second topic, root access. Sino ba yung kausap ko dati sa root access? Sa hindi pa nakakaalam, ang root access, ito po ay isang privilege control over the entire system. Parang master key po ito. Ang sino man may hawak niyan, pwede siya makapasok labas ng the whole system. Pwede siya mag-edit, pwede po siyang mag-delete. He or she can do everything and anything. Ganun po katindi itong root access na ito. Kaya nga nung last time, nandito yung mga taga-PCSO, isang tinanong ko, kung walang proper safeguards, pwede bang mamanipula ang buong computer system? And the answer was yes. Now, ang pinagtaka ko lang, bakit yung may root access ay si GM at AGM? Dapat magkaroon ng check and balance. AGM. So, sa next hearing, gusto ko meron siyang access. Is that okay by you, Chairman Kua? Isa ka sa dalawa kayo ni GM magkaroon ng root access?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think if that is the wishes of the committee, I will have to oblige. I just am not sure whether since there are two persons having access to the source code, magiging very safe. I mean, siyempre, yung hawak ko, I have control of it. Yung hawak na ibang tao, wala akong control. So, hindi ko lang malaman kung safe ba yun.
Na dalawang tao may hawak ng root access.
Opo.
Para sa'yo, dapat isa lang.
I really don't know kung sino po talaga ang mas maganda na may hawak nito na hindi talaga basta-basta ma-access, no? I think makakailangan aralin kung yung mga ibang systems na ginagamit natin sa gobyerno, halimbawa yung source code ng COMELEC, paano ba ang system nila doon para makita natin kung paano na-insure. Gaya po ng nasabi ko, I am not shying away from this responsibility. But gusto ko lang po na ma-express din yung aking concern na yung possibility kasi dalawang may access eh.
Okay, that's why we have to consult na IT expert kung meron tayo dito ngayon or later kung pwede tayong humingi ng opinion from the ICT. Kasi kung dalawa po, may check and balance. Hindi po, kasi kung isa lang, pwede hong gumawa ng kabalastugan itong isa.
Opo.
Diba? Now, kung merong isa pa, makikita nitong isa, yung pangalawa, na, pumasok ka sa system, gumawa ka ng pag-delete, gumawa ka ng pag-edit, meron kang dinagdag, malalaman.
Opo.
Sa ngayon kasi, Mr. Kua, ang merong access ay si GM at saka AGM. Itong dalawa, magkaisang ilong lang.
Opo.
At alam ko, pag nilagay kita dyan, may sarili kang mundo, sorry hindi ka kasama sa core group, and I know that for a fact. So, magkakaroon ng check and balance. Pero kung ang sinasabi mo, mas maganda kung isa lang ang may root access.
Ang ibig ko sabihin is, kung kaya bang pakialaman ng isang tao lamang yung system. Kasi kung kami ay pareho ng hawak at pareho naming pwedeng itamper, yun ang concern ko.
Okay.
I hope I express myself well.
So, ibig sabihin, yung root access, yung code nakalagay sa bolt. Pag kailangan na, bubuksan yung bolt, dalawang tao pareho, and then, pag kailangan maka-access dun sa computer, both persons are looking. Is that what you're saying? Or
Baka po mas maganda yung ganun, na walang may hawak, pero hindi mabubuksan yung bolt kung isa lang ang taong may hawak nung pwedeng susi na pambukas ng bolt.
Okay, ang tanong natin ngayon, paano natin masiguro na yung bolt ay hindi pwedeng buksan ng ibang tao?
Opo.
Sinong maghahawak ng susi sa bolt?
Kagaya po ng sistema sa safety box ng bangko, yung bangko may hawak, yung depositor may hawak. So, meron pong hindi lang isa ang humahawak. Pwede namang marami ang humahawak para lang makasigurado na kailangan magkakasabuhat.
So, ibig sabihin, Attorney Pagano, merong vault dyan na malalaman kung sino nag-access, kung sino nagbukas o hindi. I think there's such a vault. So, ilalagay yung root access doon sa vault, and then, isa lang ang pwedeng humawak niyan at mag-open ang system, and of course, may testigo once in-open ang system. Okay ba yun sa inyo?
Baka po kinakailangan hindi lang isang susi, baka kailangan dalawa, tatlo, apat, 5 susi para marami talagang susi.
Pag maraming susi, di marami maka-access.
Opo, pero kailangan po magkakasama sila para mabuksan. Yung po ibig kong sabihin. Hindi pa pwedeng isang tao lang ang magbubukas.
Okay, parang sa bangko. So,
Opo.
lahat, pare-pare yung susi nila. Hindi pwedeng isa lang magbukas.
Opo.
Hindi ubra yun.
Opo.
Dapat lahat ng may susi na yan, sabay-sabay bubuksan.
Opo. At saka isa pa po, kailangan po masigurado tayo na yung source code na yun, walang ibang may hawak na.
Okay.
Yun lang ibig kong sabihin. Kasi
DICT, CICC siguro. Anong opinion niyo po doon sa pinag-usapan namin? Kayo po ang expert pagdating dyan?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Very simple lang ho yung process natin. No? If you have a source code, normally the government deposits it with BSP. Kasi napakataas na security nila, naka-CCTV 24/7, and the only access is given if you have all the signatories present.
So yung suggestion niyo po, dapat yung source code ay i-deposit sa BSP. At kung kinakailangan, hilingin sa BSP at dadalhin sa PCSO.
If it's a suggestion that we should look into frequency, when do you need to look into the source code? Pag hindi mo naman kailangan buksan, it's just deposited there. And it is sealed by certain authorized signatories ng PCSO and its audit people. Kasi sealed siya literally in a safe box sa BSP.
Attorney Pagano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we should make a distinction between root access and source code, Mr. Chair. The source code under our agreement with the Philippine Lottery System provider, the source code is actually is in a sealed envelope signed by the provider and PCSO, and under the agreement is to be deposited in an escrow account with Land Bank. That is the process, Mr. Chair, which and we've already submitted all requirements to Land Bank of the Philippines for the establishment of that escrow account where the source code will be deposited. As mentioned by DICT, it is not something that you use every day, Mr. Chair. It's a source code, so that's like the, I cannot give an example.
So what's the difference between the source code and the root access
The
code?
root access, Mr. Chair, is the access of a certain user to the system. Like, for example, to check on how many sales there are for this 642, 649 game. So that access, actually, the highest access is given to GM Robles.
And AGM.
Yes, and AGM. But just to correct, Mr. Chair, when you have access, it does not mean that you can edit. It's not editable, Mr. Chair. So our apologies for the statement last time, but it is not as if when you have access, it is not a document that you can edit or
I
that
don't
you
think
can
so.
change.
I don't think so.
No,
We talked to an expert.
Yes.
Are you an IT expert?
No,
Attorney
Mr.
Lisa Grace Pagano, Chief
No,
of Staff,
no,
General,
Mr. Chair.
General Manager.
No.
So why are you saying that na hindi pwede? Samantalang yung nandito ka last time na hearing namin, IT expert, yung sabi niya pwede. So ngayon binabago mo. Hindi pwede. Maliban na kung magpakita sa akin ng credentials na ikaw ay IT expert.
No, Mr. Chair.
Then hindi ka pwede magsalita.
Maybe, well, of course, the
Hindi ka
expert
pwede
here would
magsalita.
be DICT.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hindi. Yung kasama niyo dito last time, expert yun eh. She declared herself as expert.
Okay.
Ba't wala siya dito ngayon? Hindi niyo pinapasok. Hindi
She
niyo
was
pinapunta.
not invited. She was not invited.
Yun nga po. ulitin ko, yung root access, pwede mag-delete. Tinanong ko siya eh. Sabi niya, okay, I'll give you an example. Ulitin ko yung example ko na last time. Tumaya si Juan de la Cruz, planted. Tumaya siya sa isang outlet, lotto outlet. Kunya 642. Tinaya niya 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nag-register yan sa PCSO. Nataya na yung numero 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then, nagbola. Ang lumabas, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You follow me so far? Okay? Now, yung taong may root access, pwede niyang palabasin, kunya walang nanalo, pwede niyang palabasin through another computer system na yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 na tinayaan niya, i-change niya to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 para mag-match doon sa winning number. Tinanong ko yon, sabi niya, imposible. Sabi ko, why? Kasi nga, may tinatawag na post-audit. Saan yung mirror? Nasaan nga dito? Saan? Yung tinatawag na witness mirror post-audit. Na agad-agad, malalaman kung minanalo, wala. Tama? And then tinanong ko, sino ang present doon sa tinatawag na witness mirror post-audit. Ang nandoon, kayo-kayo lang. Na PCSO, of course, meron taga-commission on audit. Diba? Now, tinanong ko, kung gugustuhin, pwedeng manipulahin. Ang sagot niya, yes. Kaya sabi ko, I rest my case. Kaya nagsuggest ako, bukod doon sa mga taga-PCSO at saka commission on audit, maglagay tayo ng third-party witness. It's either from academe, from media, from NGO, from civil society. At nag-agree kayo. Yun eh. So therefore, ang gusto ko, mas maganda siguro, di ba nagbubola kayo ng mga games live? Dapat sa isang screen, agad-agad, in matter of seconds, pagkatapos ng bola, sasabihin ko may nanalo, wala. Pwede ba yon? Gawin natin public? Agad-agad?
Probably 3, sir. Gaano kabilis? How fast? Mga, when they put the numbers, Mr. Chair, it probably takes 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah.
1
or 2 minutes for the system to tell if that is a winning number.
Masyado ata matagal. Dapat 30 seconds lang. Kaya yun.
I will ask our...
No, pagkatapos ng bola, lumabas yung 6 na numero, agad-agad, meron isa pang screen dyan, napapanood ng mga tao at nandun kay mga witnesses, mag-register agad. 2 winners, 1 winner, tapos nakalagay ko anong lugar.
The number of winners can be identified immediately.
Hindi sasabihin kung sino ang winner.
Yes.
Hindi natin kailangan yun. Basta't nakalagay lang kung ilang winners.
And
Kunya nakalagay 2 winners.
Yes, yes.
O, nakalagay kunya, Olonga po, Cavite.
Yes, yes.
Pwede yun.
Yes.
Gawin natin public from now on.
Mr. Chair.
Good. Kasi sa ngayon nakatago eh. Hindi, sa ngayon, di ba, it is not being made public, di ba? Malalaman na lang namin, after a day or two, sabihin nyo, no winners.
Right after the draw, Mr. Chair, right after the draw, during the live draw, if you watch the 9 p.m. draw, immediately, the winner is declared. If there is a winner.
Sinasabi?
Yes po.
Live?
Yes po.
Okay.
Yes.
At kailangan, yung sinasabi ko pa rin, again, yung nagmamonitor, nandoon present, meron ding mga outsider,
Yes
yung third
po,
party.
meron po.
Okay.
From the community. In fact, we have a panel of judges who participate in the draw procedures from pre-draw, Mr. Chair, which means the weighing of the balls.
Wala akong problema sa pre-draw kasi nakikita eh.
Yes po.
Yung problema ko doon sa post-audit.
Yes.
Kasi yung post-audit, kayo-kayo lang yan sa isang kwarto ata, tama?
No, not
Saan?
really. Doon din po sa draw court. In the draw court, there's a room which is called the Ramti. Ramti, di ba? Tama.
So from now on, tuwing meron kayong gagawin mga desisyon, gusto ko, dapat meron din tao si Chairman Kuwa.
Yes.
Kasi ang nangyayari, palagi nyo siyang, tinatanggal eh.
No, the chairman is actually given also. The chairman can watch the draw anytime, whether the pre-draw, 2, 5, 9 p.m.
Dapat
draws.
involved siya palagi.
Yes.
Kaya nga siya chairman eh.
Yes, there's no such...
Hindi, kasi nakataas ng kilay, Attorney Pagano.
Yes, sir.
Yung AGM na assistant alipores lamang ni GM, nabibigyan ng napakaraming opportunities, napakaraming pribileyo, whereas yung si chairman, isa sa pinakamataas dyan sa PCSO, palagi siyang itinatabi. From now on,
yes.
In the name of transparency, sa lahat ng mga decision making ninyo, sa lahat ng mga policy making ninyo, kailangan involved si chairman. Is that okay with you, Chairman?
Thank you for your kind statement, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman. The way things work in our organization is that operational matters are within the ambit of
GM.
the mandate of the GM. And policy matters are the ones elevated to the board. And so that is the time that I get involved in this decision-making process. Doon po sa operational matters, medyo mahirap pong makialam sa operational matters. Yung...
Hindi ko sinasabi makialam po kay Chairman. Ang sinasabi ko, dapat you are informed.
Yes,
Alam niyo
yes.
po yung mga nangyari within the organization.
Yes.
Kumbaga, they should have the courtesy to let you know.
Tama po.
Ito po yung ginagawa ng PCSO, ito po yung operations natin, ito na po yung direction natin. As chairman, you should be informed.
Yes. I thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. It would be best if my office is informed of what's happening.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that.
Attorney Pagano, okay tayo dyan? Good. Then let's move on.
Mr. Chair.
DICT, I asked you the last time na i-check niyo po integrity ng buong lotto system, maging yung Pacific Online, yung e-lotto provider ng PCSO?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in fact, as early as May of last year, 2023, the PCSO already reached out to the ICT to conduct their VAPT testing, the vulnerability assessment and penetration test. And as of November 23, we already informed them of our assessment and certain vulnerabilities. And as of December 2023, Mr. Chair, they already addressed those vulnerabilities, and their score was minimal to none.
Teka muna, what are those certain vulnerabilities na nakita niyo po?
Mr. Chair, based on the mandate of the ICT, we cannot divulge it unless subpoenaed. But before, where did it?
Then we will subpoena it.
Thank you, Mr.
Para
Chair.
malaman namin kung ano yun.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And the public has the right to know.
Yes, Mr.
Hindi
Chair.
man pwede kayo lang nakakaalam, hindi alam ng publiko. Remember, hindi naman kayo mananaya, ang tumataya, yung public.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Karamihan sa kanila, mahirap na kababayan natin na nagbabakasakali, baka makachamba, and then they're deprived of this important information. Heck no. They should be informed. So
Yes.
walang taguan dito, transparent dapat tayo.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I need those information. Comsec, isampina natin yung information na yun. What are those vulnerabilities na nakita ng DICT when they did the assessment? When
Yes,
was
Mr.
this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We will comply with the subpoena, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And maging doon sa Pacific Online?
Yes, Mr. Chair. That was exactly the VAPT test that we conducted that was requested by the PCSO,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
And then also yung current, yung sa mga outlets, yung sa, aside from the e-lotto, how about yung the whole computer system of PCSO?
We would await. You have to understand, Mr. Chair, and we would beg your indulgence that the mandate of the ICT is just the technical assistance, the technical consultant of various government agencies. We do not, hindi ho kami ang nangangalaga sa mga sistema ng gobyerno.
No, I know, because you have the expertise. Unless kung
Yes.
meron kayong i-refer sa amin na third party na expert sa pagtitingin sa computer system, kung ano yung vulnerability doon, kung ano may problema doon, kung
Mr. Chair, wala naman po problema. We would just await the request of PCSO, Mr. Chair.
PCSO, mag-request na agad-agad kayo. And how long would that be before you can come up with the result?
Usually, the VAPT testing, Mr. Chair, takes about 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Tayo ba ng 2 months?
Depende ho sa...
Umuuna si Executive Director Alexander Ramos.
Depende ho sa you have to, sana ho maintindihan ho ng chairman natin at sigurado ho naiintindihan nyo na very limited ho ang manpower ng DICT. Marami ho
Okay,
kami mga...
sige. 3 months, sige. Limited manpower, 3 months. And then don't worry, sa susunod na Senate budget hearing, tataasan ko, i-request ko na mataasan kayo ng budget.
Maraming salamat po, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
for this project. Okay, so, okay na yon tayo, Attorney Pagano, bigyan silang karapatan na
Mr. Chair,
magkaroon ng access sa inyong computer
Yes.
system.
Yes, the Philippine Lottery System is actually certified by the World Lottery Association, Mr. Chair. That's the PLS. But nevertheless, we will submit to the ICT. I think that will make their job easier.
Okay, thank you. Executive Director Ramos, may binubulong kayo? Pwede ba malaman namin kung ano yung binubulong nyo?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just remembered that Secretary Ivan tasked CICC to assist PCSO last year.
Okay.
No? With regards to yung maraming nanalo ba? So,
Okay.
we were doing an investigation.
Oo nga pala, yung maraming nanalo. Nasaan ba si Senator Coco? Yun yung tinatanong ni Senator Coco the last time eh. Bakit daw sobrang daming nanalo?
Yes.
May problema ba doon?
We were in the
Yung sa isang
middle-
game?
Yung process bakit maraming nanalo was the hanapan namin ng probability how it occurred, no?
So may mali ba doon? Pakisilip, pakitingnan.
We are-
Can I need a report?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Of that,
We are in the middle of it. We just need the full cooperation of Pacific, the contractor, to gain more access to their system. Kasi
Saan ba yung Pacific? Is Pacific here? Pacific? 101% cooperation? Give it to CICC?
Yes po, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Ayan. Okay na yan? CICC?
Yes, that would suffice. Full cooperation lang po.
Full cooperation. So, in 2 or 3 months, makuha na namin yung result?
Maybe shorter kasi naumpisa na namin.
Good. Okay. Now, let's move on. Ito, very important to me as well. Yung 2,000 na nawalan trabaho, Attorney Pagano, sabi nyo, nag-agree sa akin si GM last time, ibabalik yung mga members ng Pulaay. 2,000 of them ay nasibak dahil nga magkakaroon na ng online betting sa we call it iloto. So ibabalik natin, bibigyan natin sila mga machines. Tama?
Yeah.
Tama o tama, ma'am?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And when is that going to happen?
No, of course, Mr. Chair, you have to understand that there is a procedure that we have to go through because this involves procurement, Mr. Chair, of additional Lotto terminals. So we're looking at 2 things. First is the financial consideration regarding this. As mentioned by GM Robles last time, the cost of one Lotto terminal is 450,000. This is excluding insurance, telecommunication, etc. The second would, of course, be the technical or the physical delivery. If we will procure this from the current provider, it will take 8 to 10 months, Mr. Chair. Yes.
10 months?
Yes.
Pero possible, pwede.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
Miss Evelyn Marking Javier ng Pulaay, National President. Ma'am, reaction
Thank
niyo
you,
po, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. To my understanding, it's not going to be PCSO who will buy that machine. It will be the provider. So I don't understand. They keep on saying na expensive siya when the provider buys it and then they just rent it from the provider.
O yun naman pala, Attorney Pagano.
Yes, well, of course, that is true, Mr. Chair, that it will be the provider that will buy it, but the services of that provider, as far as POSC PGMC is concerned, this is a joint venture. It is not simply that they will connect parts and then deliver it to us. That's going to be ordered by the joint venture.
I know, pero there will be no expense on the part of the government, PCSO. Kasi
No,
nga
there
po,
is.
ang provider ang mag-procure noon,
Yes.
mag-secure.
There is, Mr. Chair, there is a list. Like mentioned last time, the procurement of 6,500 terminals was done by PCSO at the tune of 5.8 billion, Mr.
Pera
Chair.
ng PCSO?
Yes po, for 5 years. So it is not as if we can also just buy that over the counter, Mr. Chair. That is very misleading on the part of Ms. Javier.
Ma'am Javier?
So, I mean, with due respect to you, Attorney Pagano, so you're saying talagang it's really impossible for the 2,000 na ma-restore yun? I mean, what about the legacy na una-una na pong pinag-usapan na pwede namang gamitin yung lumang machine? Kasi regardless of what options we have or what we suggest, parang kung talagang ayaw pong pumayag talaga po ng pamunuan ng PCSO na mag-procure. Kasi ngayon, alam ko po, wala pang plano talaga mag-procure. Nasa sa inyo po yung decision yan. Attorney Pagano, na kay GM po yung pagpayag niya. Kung talagang papayagan niya po ba na makabili or aantayin ba namin na talagang maubos na kami at yung iloto na lang po talaga ba ang gusto ninyong tangkilikin ng lahat ng mga mananaya? I mean, talagang parang yung system po talaga, nandoon na po papunta eh. Parang if you're not going to restore your 2,000 displaced Lotto agent na umaasa po dahil from the pre-termination to termination to the stoppage, biglang nagdesisyon po si GM na i-terminate na lahat. And we have all the documents to prove na bakit ganun po yung nangyari. Bakit po hindi po kami matulungan na magkaroon po niyan. Yun lang po yung sentiments namin kaya kami po nanghingi ng tulong po talaga.
Okay. I would like to get the opinion of Chairman Juni Kua, PCSO.
Well, I recall that in the last meeting, there was a suggestion to look at the possibility of using the legacy fixed terminal equipment of the PGMC, if I'm not mistaken. And according to what I heard last time, this had been working well. And the suggestion was for management to study it.
Okay.
Hindi ko pa po alam kung ano ang nangyari doon sa pag-i-study na yon. But that is what I recall to be their suggestion.
Yes, Attorney Pagano, yeah, I remember, pwede man gamitin ulit yung legacy fixed terminal at gagawa ng study, pag-aaral yung PCSO, si GM mismo nagsabi niyan. So, ito pa rin yung pangako niyo na last time, yung sinabi niyo last time. Ang akin po kasi talaga, Attorney Pagano, 2,000 of them na wala ng hanap buhay. And sino po to? Sila. Sila po yung mga retirees, mga OFWs, mga maliliit na kababayan natin na gustong kumita sa pamagitan nitong pagiging agent, outlet agent ng PCSO. Tinanggalan nyo ng negosyo ng hanap buhay. Kawawa naman. Ibalik po natin yon. At sabi ka nung last time ni GM, ibabalik daw. So ang tanong ko, when? Sabi mo, it will take some time. So how long is some time?
Mr. Chair, just to correct Ms. Javier, there was no statement na imposible or hindi gagawin. Like I mentioned earlier, it will take the supplier 8 to 10 months. This is the provider, where we are going
Okay, sige,
to
8 to 10 months.
Yes.
So in 8 to 10 months, may babalik na sila
And this
sa
is not the
operation.
legacy system. This is the PLS, the Philippine Lottery System.
Why PLS? Samantalang last time, sabi ni GM, yung legacy fixed terminal pa rin. Pag-aaralan nila, titingnan nila kung anong pwede magawa doon para ma-incorporate sa present system ngayon.
Okay. Let me say, just for the sake of this hearing, Mr. Chair, that we will be able to ask the owner of those Lotto terminals, which is PGMC, because Ms. Javier said that they prefer PGMC. Assuming that those terminals are still in working order, ang next, sasabihin na naman nila, luma na to, palpak to. So actually, Mr. Chair, this is a management decision of PCSO that we are studying the possibility of just getting new terminals. Because what Ms. Javier is saying, we'll use the legacy system, which are old terminals of PGMC. Yun po. And then, if we will use that, may problema na naman po yung terminal na yon, mananagot na naman kami. So what it's actually, Mr. Chair, as already stated by GM Robles last time, the legacy system or terminals are actually end of life already, Mr. Chair, and is not compatible with the Philippine lottery system. So if you look
I
at...
know, I remember that. Pero sabi niyo, pag-aaralan niyo kung paano ma-incorporate itong
Yes.
legacy fixed terminal
Well,
sa present system
yes, from the last
para
hearing-
mapagbigyan sila.
Yes, from the last hearing, Mr. Chair, may I already inform this committee respectfully that we studied already the possibility of using the legacy terminals, and it is no longer feasible, Mr. Chair. It is not to the best interest of government.
So if it's no longer feasible, meaning bibigyan niyo sila ng bagong terminal. At,
That's
at
what
yung
I was
sinasabi niyo, it might
explaining.
take 6 to 8 months.
8 to 10 months.
8 to
yes.
10 months.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Javier, 8 to 10 months?
Mr.
Pulay?
Chair, may I allow our SOCMED to
Yes,
speak
of
with
course.
regards kasi
Ma'am
pioneer agent
Clarissa
po yun.
Imperial, social media ng Pulay.
Good morning po, Mr. Chair. While we really talaga pong ina-acknowledge naman namin yung effort ni PCSO about yung bagong system na gagamitin namin, sana naman during your studies na ginawa, sana kinonsider nyo po yung mga lotto agents. We are renting po ng mga pwesto at hindi lang 1,000, 2,000. Most of us, more than 10,000. Imagine po, kung 10 months po kaming tetenga na nagbabayad po kami ng renta at hindi pa namin alam kung kailan talaga yon, talaga po nakakasama ng loob, Mr. Chair. Kasi hindi lang naman po talaga 2,000 na lotto agents ang naapektuhan. Bawat isa po sa amin, at least may 1 or 2 tellers, which is sila po yung mas nakakaawa. Sila po yung mas tinamaan ng malaki kaysa sa amin. Kasi po kami, may mga ibang hanap buhay po kami. Pero itong mga lotto agents na to, like yung tellers, I'm sorry po. Like po sa case ko, dati kasi marami po akong loto. So natanggal kasi bumaba yung mga sales, sinara ko po. Binigay ko sila sa ibang mga bagong lotto agents na kabubukas pa lang nila, 3 months, 4 months, binigyan na sila ng termination notice. Ang isang lotto outlet po, para makita po namin yung established na sales namin, we have to operate for at least 6 months to a year. Hindi po ganun kadali ngayong kumita sa lotto kasi tabi-tabi na po kami. Pinagtabi-tabi kami. Ang dami namin kakompetensya.
In HDL, for 1 peso, they are being paid 650 or 6,500 for a 10 peso bet. So nobody goes to us anymore. So,
So in short, Attorney Pagano, so hindi niyo po pwedeng sisihin yung mga operators ng lotto outlets niyo kung mababa yung sales nila dahil kayo mismo ang dahan-dahan pinapatay sila sa pamagitan ng paglagay ng STL. Have they been consulted bago nagkaroon ng STL?
Mr.
Na
Chair,
napagbutuhan mo ba ito?
actually, these are the same issues that were raised before STL was even launched, Mr. Chair. May I just, because at the time I was not yet there. Kailan na-launch yung STL? 19?
2,000.
Okay, I know it was before your term. I understand that.
But actually, Mr. Chair, all those sentiments regarding STL were already raised during the STL, during the
Anyway,
hearings.
sorry ma'am. In short, tama nga naman, naintindihan ko sinasabi nila. Kayo dyan sa PCSO, come and go kayo eh. Di ba? Sila nandyan na eh. For so many years, dekada na, yun ang hanap buhay nila eh. Kayo, darating kayo dyan, masisiga-sigaan, gagawa ng experimental na mga polisiya, tinatamaan sila dahil at hindi sila kinukonsulta. Dapat magkaroon lang kayo paggala na konsultahin sila dahil sila nga ang nagpapayaman sa PCSO. Sila yung nagde-deliver ng pera sa PCSO. Sila yung mga kalabaw ng PCSO. And yet, pagdating ng oras, hindi sila kinukonsulta. Ang masaklap pa, sila pa ay pinaparusahan kapag low ang sales at napapasara. God damn. At kagagawa niyo yun kung ba't bumabang sales nila. Dahil naglagay kayong panibagong sugal. Pag may panibagong sugal, panibagong kita. Hindi lang sa PCSO. God knows kung sino pa mga kumikita.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may add, there's a third reason. Before, STL is prohibited to play lotto games, particularly 3D, because 3D is a lotto game.
Ano po yung 3D?
Yung Suertres, it's a digit game, Your Honor. The Suertres, the 3-digit games.
3-digit,
Yeah,
okay.
that's called 3D. And previously, STL is prohibited to play 3D because that is a lotto game.
Ngayon?
But now, they are now allowed.
Kailan pa po ito?
This administration, Your Honor.
Okay.
That's why, wala na naiwan sa amin, Mr. Honor.
So, Attorney Pagano, bakit pinayagan na mapunta sa STL yung 3-digit game na dapat hindi? Ito pala ang isa pang kumakain sa kinikita ng mga lotto agents.
This was approved by the Office of the President, Mr. Chair.
Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
Do you think I'm stupid?
Yes.
Siyempre, kayo po ang nagpipid niyan. Whatever you feed to the Office of the Office of the President might say, yes. Kayo po dyan sa mga Board of Directors ang gumagawa ng polisiya. Don't tell me sa Presidente, BBM, ang nagdeklara. Anong pakialam ni Presidente BBM sa mga polisiya sa Lotto? He's so busy with bigger problems that we have in our country.
AGM.
Not the 3-digit game. Don't tell me na si President BBM ang may pakana na yung 3-digit game ilaro na ilalaro na sa STL. No. Kayo po dyan, mga Board of Directors, ipinid nyo po sa Office of the President. Natural yung Office of the President, siguro through the ES, pipirma yan kasi sinubo nyo sa kanya eh. Sinabi nyo, nagkaroon kami ng board resolution, aprobado na itong 3-digit game ilalaro na sa STL. Isinubo nyo sa Office ng President, nandiyan sa desk ni ES, pipirma niyan. Galing sa inyo, manggagaling sa inyo. Don't tell me na manggagaling kay Presidente mismo yung idea. Kaya sabi ko, I'm not stupid. Anyway, ang sa akin po, nakita ko aping-api talaga itong mga lot outlets natin. Gusto ko po, yung napag-usapan, maibalik yung 2,000 na mga lotto operators. And then, yung iba pa mga pulisya na gagawin nyo po ngayon, they have to be consulted. Siguro, I would like Chairman Junico to be involved. Nandiyan naman yung office niya and he'll be more than willing to assist. Okay lang ba, Chairman Kua?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, kasi nakikita ko po, dehadong-dehado po sila for the longest time. Yes, Mr. Bana?
Mr. Chair, to end my testimony here, the problems has been exposed already. So if I may suggest solutions to the terminated 2,000 lotto agents and even the existing 6,500 lotto agents. Number one, the long-term solution, as mentioned, is for PCSO to procure additional FLX machines.
Ano po, additional?
Additional FLX machines. The present one that they are deploying to 6,500 lotto agents. So procure more, especially to be given to the
2,000.
terminated.
Yun nga po sinasabi ni Attorney Pagano na it might take 6 to 8 months, right?
Okay.
Okay sa inyo yun, 6 to 8 months. Basta may
We-
guarantee, Attorney Pagano, may guarantee na in 6 to 8 months, yung may bibigay yan doon sa mga 2,000 na nawalan. Attorney Pagano.
And 8 to
Sorry, 8 to 10 months.
We,
Okay sa
yeah,
inyo?
Mr. Chair, we understand the legal procedures and requirements for the procurement. And as Ms. Imperial mentioned, 8 to 10 months, we are dead by that time. So the second suggestion that I made for the medium term is to use the machines of PGMC, which was the legacy, which was used here in Luzon. And to my understanding, it is still usable. So as our stopgap measure, maybe we can use that. And we are made to understand that there was a study made by the game sector that it's not anymore usable or it's not compatible. but I'm sorry to say this, but that is a self-serving statement. Let an independent entity check whether it can still be used, because you are willing now. Of course, there will be problems because it's an old machine, but that is better than none. Okay? So
Okay,
I would suggest
okay,
that
may suggestion po ako ganito. Habang inintay po yung 8 to 10 months na FLX machines, bakit hindi po muna natin paggamitin sila nitong legacy fixed terminal?
Earlier, that is
Na para, kasi naintindihan ko po siya sabi ni Miss Imperial, 10,000 ang renta bawat buwan. Kung nakatenga lang sila at wala silang kinikita, 10,000 times 8, that's 80,000.
That is not ours, Mr. Chair, and that was under a lease agreement, di ba? Yung lease agreement which has already expired. Mr. Chair.
Yung itong legacy.
Yes po. Those terminals are not ours. The lease agreement over those terminals has already expired last year, Mr. Chair.
So wala nang gumagamit nito.
Wala na po. And it's owned by PGMC. I have not even talked to PGMC if they still have those terminals.
Okay, Mr. Bana?
Yeah, it was mentioned in the previous hearing that our President, Ms. Javier, has approached the office of the OGCC. And the OGCC is willing to extend the ELA, the Equipment Lease Agreement, in order
yun
for
pala.
those machines.
So willing.
It's just waiting for the request from PCSO so that OGCC can give its opinion.
Nandito ba yung OGCC? Very good. Attorney Katrina Reyes, ma'am. Totoo ba?
Your Honor, I was not privy to that meeting, so
But can
I
you
will
check?
have to check, yes.
Can you make a phone call now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ngayon na?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, kung merong ganon na, ano sabi niyo ulit? Instructions from OGCC na extend yung lease para ma-accommodate po yung sitwasyon ninyo?
Ma'am Evelyn can...
No, gusto ko lang. Ganon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, kung merong ganong...
They're willing to extend sana until January, until such time na maka-order sila ng bagong machine. But the
January
thing
this year.
Oh, yeah.
Pero nag-lapse na.
Nag-lapse na po, pero hindi po sila kasi nag-apela eh. They were only asking kung pwede sila mag-appeal. I mean, from the general manager to appeal. I mean, Sir Arnel Casas, AGM
Okay,
Casas
well,
knows
tapos na
that.
po yun eh. Okay. Water under the bridge. Pag-usapan po natin ngayon.
Yeah.
So, pwede ba ulit mag-issue ang OGCC? Hindi na pwede, too late na.
Well, if PCSO
extension
would
of lease.
ask, siguro po. If
PCSO?
PCSO would appeal, I would
Just
ask.
to accommodate the
Mr.
2,000
Chair, I will just have to answer
outlet
this
agents.
regarding legal requirements. An expired contract can no longer be extended. As I mentioned, that is an expired contract. And I don't think OGCC will have jurisdiction or authority to order PCSO to extend a contract that has already expired. Perhaps Judge Cat can confirm.
Well, anyway, sabi lang po nila yon. Kaya nga, sabi ni Attorney Reyes, she's not aware of it. That's why I said make a phone call. But anyway, January pa pala na-expire na. Ganito lang po, kasi marami pa akong tatakel. Meron pa tayong pag-core, mahaba rin po. Kasi, sige po, para hindi yes,
Yeah,
Attorney
one
Jose.
last thing, Mr. Chair. As an immediate assistant to the Lotto agent, may we request that STL Games, kinuha na yung Lotto sa iLotto, kinuha na po yung 3D sa STL Games. We request that STL Games can be played inside Lotto outlets, and that will make us survive until such time that the FLX machine will come in.
Pero yung STL, may mga operators yun.
Opo, in other words, the AEC, the Authorized Agent Corporations, will be allowed to tap the Lotto outlets to play STL inside Lotto games. Then we will survive.
Okay, social media, ng Pulay.
Mr. Chair, yung request po namin na yung STL, sana sa amin na lang, kasi may mga pwesto po kami. Actually po, nagka-STL po ako dati sa loob ng loto ko. Kasi may tumabing STL sa loto ko. Sabi ko, ipasok nyo sa akin. Ang problema sa STL kasi, minsan illegal, minsan legal. Hindi namin alam kung alin ang
Oh
legal.
yeah, kasi karamihan sa mga STL mayari, mga gambling lord din eh.
O kaya po, ang pakiusap lang po namin, yung immediate na makakatulong po sa aming mga lotto agents is yung STL, ipasok na lang po sa loob
I don't know
ng
the legal
lotto.
technicality
Yun
about
lang
that kasi
po
yung
ang-
STL may mga kontrata na yan at Attorney Pagano, possible ba yung request nila na pwedeng magtaya ang STL doon sa mga machines nila?
Yun nga po yun eh. Actually, Mr. Chair, the STL has a separate IRR which has already been in place since the time it started in 2017. Iba rin po ang draw court ng STL, kaya I'm not really familiar with the procedure that they are proposing because STL has its own draw court and it is required that they are 200 meters away from the Lotto outlet. So yung pag nagpapataya ho sila ng STL doon, illegal nga ho yun eh. Bawal ho yun.
Ganito lang po, sorry kasi meron pa po tayong pag-core. Okay.
I need to tap Chairman Juni Kua na dito po sa mga hinaing nila na hindi pa natatapos ngayon. Continuous investigation gagawin natin with your help na kayo po magtutulay sa PCSO, sa GM's office at kung ano pang departamento sa PCSO to help them out, Chairman Kua, because I believe in your credibility. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If tasked by Your Honor, I certainly will be more than willing to try to find solutions to this problem.
Kasi nandiyan ka na, insider ka na eh. Dahil ang nangyari, pag sila daw ay nakikipag-communicate sa PCSO, pinaikot-ikot sila at umabot ng napakatagal na panahon bago sila sinasagot. Whereas kung kayo po maging tulay, alam ko mabilis kayo umaksyon, agad-agad may parating sa kanila yung problema ng grupo.
Yeah. Okay lang sa akin, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So, sorry po talaga kasi kung lahat po kayo abutin tayo another 5 hours dito kasi 1 hour, ubos tayo. Sorry ha. Really need to wrap this up kasi meron pa akong dalawang issue sa inyo and then meron pa tayong pagkor. Ayoko naman abutin tayo hanggang gabi sa issue lang natin dito. So, sige, 2 more. Go ahead po.
Mr. Chair, last year po nag-approach na po kami kay Chairman Kua regarding po dun sa ginagamit ng STL yung result namin. Tapos nagulat kami, inapprove ng PCSO na gamitin yung result ng 3D.
I'm sorry, lumapit kay Chairman Kua?
Opo. Nagreklamo ho yung mga lotto agents na ginagamit ng STL yung result ng 3D, especially sa Visayas Mindanao and 2D sa zone.
So walang nagawa si Chairman?
Hindi ko po alam.
Chairman?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kua.
I recall that this problem was relayed and brought to my attention. But of course, this matter are decisions to be made by the board. And I recall that when this matter was brought to the board, I expressed a different opinion.
Okay. So you expressed a different opinion, but was that communicated to them para malaman nila na gusto mong mangyari yung request nila, kaya lang na-outvoted ka because you're only one. You're a member of the board also, right?
Yes. I'm the chairman. I also vote.
Kaya nga, isang boto. Pero dapat na-communicate nyo po sa kanila.
That was already, when the board decided, it was of course executed by the management and it was relayed to them.
Kasi po isang boto lang po siya. So, it doesn't mean na lumapit kayo sa kanya, wala siyang ginawa. Meron siyang ginawa, kaya lang.
Actually, sabi po ni Chairman, papi naman ho siya sa amin regarding, ayaw niya kung ginagamit ng STL yung result ng 3D.
Kaya ito lang po, Mr. Chairman, pag meron po sila mga hinaing and then pumunta sila sa iyo, and then kung sa tingin niyo po, pinaikot-ikot kayo, pwede ba kayo pumunta sa amin, ihiring natin para ma-expose in the name of transparency, malaman natin kung umaksyon ba o hindi ang PCSO.
Pwede po.
Okay, ganoon naman po.
If that
At
is
least meron
the-
na kayong tulay si Chairman. And I really trust his credibility. I know Chairman Kua. This gentleman has been a public servant for so many years and impeccable po ang kanyang credibility. So, nakita niyo naman po yung hindi niya natugunan yung sumbong dahil isa lang siya sa board. Pinagbubutuhan ko yan. Okay?
Thank you po. Thank you, Mr.
Sige
Chair.
po.
Thank you, Chairman Kua.
Sunod po na ating... Ma'am, meron pa ulit? Thank you. Sunod po natin ngayon ay, nandito ba yung DILG? DILG? Did we invite DILG? Isapin na natin DILG. We have to issue a subpoena sa DILG. Ito mga taga-DILG, anong nangyari? Sabi, on the way? Walang DILG?
Pero they confirmed yesterday. Pero ngayon, we will try to contact them.
Tawagan niyo sa secretary ng DILG. Meron ba tayong cellphone? Can you call him? Grabe naman itong mga taga-DILG na to. The reason why we need to talk to the DILG, dun sa sumbong pa ng mga members ng Pulay na pinagbabayad ng business permit ang mga outlets. Samantala meron desisyon ang Supreme Court na hindi na dapat. Diba? So, bakit itong mga taga-LGU dapat to the DILG, ayaw sumunod. Meron ba taga Batangas dito, LGU? Kayo po, City Legal, Batangas City. Attorney Sunny Jose Rica Blanca. Magandang hapon sa inyo. Okay. Attorney Rica Blanca, hindi niyo po nirespeto itong desisyon ng Supreme Court?
Your Honor, good morning. First, we would like to clarify, Your Honor, that we are only imposing a mayor's permit fee at a fixed rate of 5,000 pesos. We are not imposing a business fee based on the commissions earned of the lotto agents, Your Honor. And we have reviewed all the jurisprudence that have been cited by the PCSO and the letter sent to us by the PCO's Vice Chairman year 2022. And we believe, Your Honor, that these cases are not applicable to the issue at hand.
Dito po sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema, kailangan po nila kumuha ng mayor's permit, pero hindi nila kailangan magbayad ng mayor's fee. Yan po yung nakalagay dito eh. Yung iba po nagko-comply na, so kayo na lang po dyan sa Batangas, ayaw pa mag-comply. Ayan po yun, no? May kopya ko kayo nito. In fact, I understand, napadala na rin po kayo ng letter ng DLG. O yung DLG nagpalabas ng kanilang opinion. Kaya gusto ko nandito yung DLG para yung DLG mismo magsasalita at magsasabi. Eh kaso itong DLG, hindi sumipot. So, ito po, wala ba kayong kopya nito?
Your Honors, meron po, nakatanggap po kami.
Okay.
And we have already submitted our position paper yesterday, Your Honor,
Okay.
answering those
Position paper
jurisprudence, Your Honor.
na hindi nyo susundin itong Supreme Court decision na sinasabi, okay lang magbayad sila, mag-apply sila ng mayor's permit. Okay lang yon. Pero hindi na dapat sila kailangan pa magbayad ng mayor's fee. Ito yun eh. Kasi maliit na nga lang kita nila, sir. Kita mo, hindi ka ba naawa? Kanina pinag-usapan natin na kinakawawa sila. Diyan pa yung STL na papatay na yung kanilang kita, na yung 3-digit, etc. etc. Tapos sisingilin pa sila 5,000. Wag naman. Okay lang yun, sisingilin sila po yung sa environmental, sa garbage, o yung fire inspection. Ako naman tawag doon,
Regulatory fees po.
regulatory fees, okay lang yun. Okay sa inyo, di ba? Yung sa mayor's fee, ang malaki, 5,000. Dapat tablado na yun kasi yun ang sinasabi rito. Supreme Court decision. Sumunod po kayo kasi kung hindi, makukontem kayo. 5,000 lang. Marami pa naman yung mga negosyo sa Batangas na pwede niyo po sigurong, di ba, patawan ng mayor's permit fee.
We will look into it, Your Honor. I
Thank you.
submit, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Attorney Sani Jose Rica Blanca. Thank you in advance dun sa iyong mayor. What's the name of your mayor, sir?
Beverly Rose Dimacuha, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. In advance kay Baby Mayor Rose. Thank you. Okay, isa na lamang. Parang ayaw ko nang banggitin to, pero since nasa agenda, itong mga kabo ng STL na napag-usapan no last time. Ito, STL, galit siya sa STL eh. But anyway, trabahador din to, yung mga kabo na walang SSS pilat pag-ibig. Di ba nung nag-hearing tayo nito many months ago, sabi niyo magkakaroon na po, sinulatan niyo ako ng pag-PCSO, magkakaroon na po ng benefits ng mga kabo kasi ito naman talaga ang kumukolekta ng taya, kubrador, umulan man uminit, pag nagkasakit, wala silang pambayad sa hospitalization, magmamakaawa pa sila sa mga STL operators, kuminsan nakakatikim pa sila masakit na salita. So, ano pong status itong mga kabo? Meron na ba sila mga benefits?
Actually, Mr. Chair, for an STL to be able to operate, they have to submit SSS and PhilHealth coverage of their employees. However, for the AACs, the cabos and cobradores are actually not regular employees. They come and go, Mr. Chair. Meron yung housewife, papasok siya ngayon, mangongolekta siya. Tomorrow, wala na po siya. So, to be honest, Mr. Chair, it really depends on the legislative bodies to pass the requisite law regarding this because this involves SSS and PhilHealth. There are provisions of the SSS law. In fact, if you don't cover your employees, that's a criminal case, as well as the PhilHealth law. So, unfortunately, project or mga
Attorney
intermittent
Pagano,
employees
ma'am,
are not covered.
Ma'am, for the second time,
Yes,
please
sir.
don't make me stupid here.
No, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
ma'am, yung sinasabi mo, totoo yun. May mga housewife, come and go. Pero that's only 1%. Yung 99%, they stick. Sila pa rin po yung nangongolekta. Kaya nga po, kumikita po ng bilyones, ito po mga STL operators. Kasi kung sila, come and go yung kanilang mga kolektor, hindi sana kikita silang ganong kalaki. Kaya sila kumikita ng ganong kalaki dahil may mga suki-suki na yan. Yung mga kobrador kabo, may mga suki na yan. Yung pagtataya nila, regular na. So, ma'am, kailangan po talaga magkaroon ng benefits to mga kabo. Kailangan po. Siguro pwede niyo po ilagay doon sa kondisyon sa pagbibigay ng prangkisa sa mga STL operators na dapat merong SSS PhilHealth pag-ibig ang inyong mga kabo kobradores. Pag hindi, kakansilin ang inyong pong prangkisa. Ganun lang po yun. Kung gugustuhin, maraming paraan. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan. Di po ba, Madam Attorney? You're a lawyer. Okay, ma'am? So, gusto ko po sa susunod na hearing, meron po tayo makikitang concrete document na decision na talaga magkakaroon na po ng benefits ng mga kabo. Kasi itong mga STL operators, and you will agree with me. Some of them are gambling lords. Really. Some of them. Buong Pineda, ang daming STL. Kilalang gambling lord yan. Di ba?
One more
Secretary,
thing,
on behalf of the
Mr. Chair.
on behalf of the
Yung
Cabos?
pong cancellation po, ang problema ho namin up to now. Kasi po talagang malaki hong problema ho lahat ng mga lotto agents, lotto tellers yan eh. Kung
Ano po,
sinasabi, yung cancellation po, ng ticket cancellation,
Okay.
yan po yung pinakamabigat na...
Okay, isa pa. Thank you. Hindi na lista ng staff ko dito. Ticket cancellation. Attorney Pagano, nangyari, nag-aabono yung mga teller. Nagbigay ng example. Hindi naman kagustuhan nila na ikakansilin yun kasi yung mananaya, sabi, ayoko yung ticket niya, mali yan, hindi yan ang tinayaan ko. Sila nagbabayad. So anong
Actually,
decision
Mr.
natin
Chair,
dyan?
as mentioned to you by GM Robles last time, the reason cancellation was stopped is because PCSO was losing 500,000 per day. I think if you remember, Mr. Chair, I was here also during
Okay.
that hearing. 500,000 pesos per day. PCSO was losing that kind of money. It was there was a time that it amounted to 17 million pesos for a month. Now, I understand the plight of the tellers, especially the tellers, not the agents, Mr. Chair. But what we are looking into now is that we will allow cancellations under very stringent requirements. That it
Okay.
is not as simple they deduct the cancellations from their sales. There is a process, Mr. Chair. The Commission on Audit, we've already consulted the Commission on Audit. This is similar to a money claim against government because a cancellation is deducted from the sales, Mr. Chair. Like mentioned by GM Robles last time, mas marami pa ho ang cancellations kesa sa sales nung isang lotto agent na to. I hope they will let me finish my statement, Mr. Chair. Regarding cancellations, we are looking into already the return of the option to cancel, but under very stringent requirements. It will be on a basis of reimbursement. It will have to be looked at, validated by our branch manager or our personnel, and then it...
Ma'am, napakahabang proseso yan.
Yes po.
Ang sinasabi nila last time, kung maalala ko, bigyan sila ng window na they're able to cancel that mismong taya.
That's what we did last time, Mr. Chair. That was what the teller used to do a lot of cancellations. They were given a window of 5 minutes, Mr. Chair, from the cancellation. Now, my question is, this actually is disadvantageous to the government. We were losing 500,000
Okay,
pesos
I
a
know
day.
you were losing 500,000.
500.
How about the small tellers that are losing a lifetime savings or the whole month salary because of this kapalpakan ng computer system?
No, that's no, Mr.
Hindi kasi,
Chair.
Attorney Pagano, nandito
Yes,
ka naman,
sir.
di ba? Yung sinasabi nila, yung mga numero na nailagay doon sa ticket na hindi naman dapat, na nagkamali po yung system error po. Inadmit ni GM to, nangyari to. And yet, sa kanila, dinideduct.
That is a general statement, Mr. Chair. There are
Kaya
several
paano yun?
reasons for
Paano yun?
cancellation.
Paano yun? Inadmit
Kaya
nyo naman
nga
na
po.
nangyari yun.
Kaya
Na
nga
nagkakamali. Kasama, naalala ko yan, thermal paper, hindi maganda.
Opo.
Okay. Mali yung pagka-print.
Yes.
Okay, hindi nababasa. Or mali yung
Madumi yung
printer.
scanner.
Tapos meron pa yung system. Imbis na
Opo.
tinatayan niya system 3, lumabas
Opo.
system 8.
Opo.
Wala siya pambayad. So that needs to be canceled.
Yes.
Ngayon, aalis yung mananaya. Wala siyang pera eh.
Yes.
Ayoko yan. Ang laki-laki yan. 6,000. Pera ko lang dito. Kunyari, 3,000. Silang mag-absorb ng 6,000.
Yun nga
So
po.
paano yun?
Yun nga
Anong
po.
solusyon po nakikita niyo doon?
Okay. That's why we need to classify the reason for the cancellation. If the cancellation is caused by the paper, that's why may validation po yan, Mr. Chair. Hindi pwedeng teller lang magsabi, ay, cancel to, deduct ko sa...
So what you're saying is,
Bubulsan niya
merong validation process.
Yes.
So pupunta sa PCSO, ang mga teller ipapakita yung ticket, ito-validate ng
Dati
PCSO.
naman po talaga
At
yun.
i-reimburse.
Yes po.
Is that fair enough, Chairman? Kuha?
Well, if the damage is a result not coming from the teller, then I think the
Okay yung reimbursement process.
sa tingin ko pwede.
Okay. So what they're saying, ma'am, okay si Chairman doon, na i-reimburse na lang. Meron kasi validation process. Pupunta sa PCSO, ipapakita, ipunin yung mga ticket na dapat na-cancel, and then reimburse nila. Tama?
They were required to keep the tickets kasi Mr. Chair, kung may problema yung papel, then sisingilin namin yung supplier. Kung may problema yung equipment, sisingilin
Pwede bang
namin.
mapakita kayo ng record para malaman nila na nagsasabi kayo ng totoo na the government were losing half a
Yes.
million a month?
Yes, we have
you said?
that. We have that. We will submit
Sa
to
mga
the
cancellation
committee.
na yan?
Yes, Mr. Chair. From,
Okay.
if you want, from January 2023 up to September under the old system.
Magkano po na ano?
500 average, okay.
500,000?
Yeah, for January to September up to 2023, under the legacy system, we were losing 541, 498, etc. Average of 503,478 pesos 39 centavos. For the month of October and November, for October we lost 548,000.
Okay, so very clear to us. Basta pakita
have-
niyong record sa amin
yes.
na talagang nawawalan kayo
The list
ng pera
as
because of
well.
this cancellation.
The list as well of the lotto agents,
Now,
Mr. Chair.
meron na kayong patakaran in place yung bang validation they have to go to validation process at sila may reimburse.
That's what we are crafting now, Mr. Chair, because
Okay.
we practically should be given time instead of having to answer their crying.
Okay. So what's
stories.
wrong with that na kailan may validation process dahil magpapakita silang records dito na talagang nalulugit
Mr. Chair.
by the hundreds of thousands.
Mr. Chair, hindi naman po lahat ng lotto outlets nagkakaroon ng cancellation. So,
Ang tanong ko lang, ano pong problema niyo doon? Ma'am, isa-isa lang.
Yes, sir.
Ano problema niyo po doon na i-refund naman daw, i-reimburse as long as meron dadaan sa isang
Mr.
validation
Chair,
process?
cancel na po yun eh. Cancel na po yun, hindi na po kasama sa sales yun. Kung kinancel. Ngayon, kung wrong basa po ng reader, usually naabot minsan 5,000, 6,000, wala naman ho iaabono. Kailan pa? Kung everyday ho may error yung machine, lalaki ho yan. Paano po yun? Kasi minsan ho darating yung technician, tatawagin yung technician, bumabasa ng mali yung machine. So, lilinisin, maayos na. So, ilang basa na po yung nagkamali. Example, 320. Sa pagitan ng 20, may 520. Yun yung nagiging problema ng bagong machine. Masyado pong sensitive, lalo po ngayon. Kaya nga po nagmamadali kami na kailangan magkaroon na po ng cancellation. Kasi everyday po may nag-aabono.
Ma'am, okay, kung by the thousands pala ang cancellation, wala naman pang abono to sila. Kung 5,000, 6,000, magkano ang sweldo ng teller? Minimum. Kung nakatatlong cancellation worth 15,000, ubos yung sweldo lang yung sinasabi ko. So, and I do acknowledge na naluluging PCSO ng 500,000. Kung nag-augment nga kayo by the hundreds of millions, 500 million, yung 500,000.
Mr. Chair.
Sir, please, sorry po Kung nag-augment kayo ng 500,000 para may manalo lang ng isa, ano yung 500,000 na malulugi kayo? Although, dapat din naluluging PCSO. Gawan nyo ng paraan na hindi naman madidehado itong, ma'am, sandali lang. Kasi salita ako, taasan kayo ng kamay. Nalilito po ako, please. Okay? Paano naman? Diba sila? Paano kung yung wala silang pang-reimburse? Dapat pag mag-usap kayo, you have to come up with a system.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Maybe we will have a cap. Like for example, you're allowed 5 cancellations, or something to that effect, Mr. Chair. And then more than that threshold, they really have to report that to the hotline. Ang nakakapagtaka kasi, Mr. Chair, based on our ang lagi na lang nakakancel 2D, 4D. We have
2D, 4D.
Yes po. 2D, 3D, 4D. Yan po
Bakit?
lagi.
Bakit 2D, 3D, 4D?
Without having to say who did what. Ang gagawin nila, kunwari, na-cancel yon. Kasi if hindi naman yon ma-claim, kung hindi winning ticket yon, ano na yon, good as cancelled na yon, kanila na yung taya na yon. Ngayon, pag nanalo yon, kaya na rin nilang anuhin yon, bayaran yung 4-5 na price nito.
So ibig sabihin nilalabanan.
Nilalabanan po eh.
And you have those records to show na puro 4D, 3D.
2D, 3D, 4D po.
Pero yung pumunta dito nung last time, hindi. Yung talagang regular lotto game. Yung 645.
I did not see the proof that they presented. I did not see those documents.
Kaya nga po
Mr.
lalabas
Chair.
ko kayo ng polisiya na maging stick kayo dun sa mga 4D, 3D, whatever, 5D. Pero doon po sa mga big lotto games, dapat agad-agad pag nag-cancel, hindi naman pwedeng dayain yun, hindi naman pwedeng labanan yun, makancel para hindi na mag-abono yung mga teller. Is that okay?
Mr.
Doon
Chair.
sa mga 4D, 3D,
We will classify again. Like,
so magkaroon ng classification. Okay?
Yes.
Ma'am.
Mr. Chair, I just simply don't understand as to why they're saying they're losing money. They're not naman even paying the cancellations. I mean, we suffer paying because we needed to, wala na pong cancellation, di ba? So, kung during the cancellation, they're losing, why are they going to lose with the cancellation? Canceled na nga po yun, hindi na papasok sa sales yun. So it's just, I mean, where's the logic there that, they're saying that they're losing 500,000?
Attorney Pagano, she's making sense here.
No, she's
Oo nga
not a
naman.
lotto agent
Oo
kasi
nga
that's why
naman.
she doesn't
Cancelled na
understand.
yun. Bakit pa nga pala malulugi ang PCSO sa mga tickets na cancelled? Hindi na nga pumasok pala yon sa kaban ng PCSO.
Yun. Yun nga, sir. They make it appear that it was canceled and they deduct that, okay, you have sales, example. Example, sir. Magbigay ako ng example. Wait, ito. Oh, let's say, para hindi masyadong malaki, 4D. Ang sales niya, 6,160 pesos.
Okay,
May
6,000.
cancel siya. May cancel, Mr. Chair. 5,760 pesos.
Okay,
So,
tama na. Lalabas sa records nila, papasok doon sa PCSO, halimbawa sa 4D.
Canceled na po.
Oh, canceled how much? 6,000?
Hindi, ang sales po niya, 6,150.
Okay.
Okay. Ang cancel niya, 5,760.
Okay.
Ang net sales niya, 390.
Okay,
Yun
so,
na lang po natira.
okay. So, ibig sabihin, ibinawas yung canceled doon sa sales na pumasok doon sa PCSO.
Opo.
Okay.
We
So,
have naman, Mr. Chair, we have the documents. We're not making this up. It's not as if we can make up all this data.
okay. Siguro po, kailangan din natin ng third-party auditor na titingin dyan para tingnan yung records ninyo, babanggain doon sa records nila. Okay?
Welcome that, Mr. Chair, para matapos na once and for all yung issue nila about cancel.
And then,
welcome
siguro,
that.
bigyan nyo kami ng record para ipasa namin sa kanila yung
Yes.
mga sinasabi nyong lugi ng 500,000 by the hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
Bigyan natin sila ng
Yes.
kopya so they
We
can
will
study it.
welcome that, Mr. Chair.
And then, pwede nilang kontahin, pwedeng hindi. Pag kinonta nila, pupunta sila kay Chairman Kua,
Yes, punta-
sasabihin nila,
opo.
and then mag-uusap-usap yung mga operators. Okay?
Opo.
Alright. Okay.
Produkto pa ng PCSO. So, ang hirap po para sa amin. Yung pong 2,000 lotto agents, may kasama po kaming mga tellers na mas mahirap pa po sa amin. Na sa totoo lang po, wala po silang kabuhayan ngayon. Wala po yung iba sa kanila talagang makain kasi wala na po kaming ipapasweldo sa kanila. I'm sorry po for being emotional again kasi more than 20 years na po akong lotto agent. And since the time na nagkaloto po yung pamilya namin, tuwing may uupong bagong GM, pag pumalpak yung mga desisyon nila, kami po yung naaapektuhan ng malaki. Nagtatrial and error sila, kami yung naaapektuhan ng malaki. Sana maintindihan po ng lahat na bilang mga lotto agents po, kami po ang nagpapasok ng pera sa gobyerno, day in and day out. But every time na may gagawin kayong mga major decision, out kami. Samantalang kami yung nasa ground, kami yung mga tao na nakakaalam kung ano yung operation yung daily operations namin. Pag ang PCSO nasasangkot sa isang iskandalo, free po yung service namin na nililinis namin yung pangalan ng PCSO for the sake na kami yung unang naaapektuhan. So, I'm sorry po if I have to say this, pero mukhang sa tingin ko, hindi committed sila eh. May mas importante pa ba nagagawin ngayon bilang leader si GM, kundi itong matapos itong problema na to. Marami kong nagugutom sa amin. Hindi lang po kami. Sa totoo lang, ninakawan niyo po kami ng karapatan na maghanap buhay ng marangal at kinuha niyo po sa mga mananaya namin ang karapatan na umasa balang araw, magiging milyonaryo sila. Dahil sa iskandalong ito, na kayo-kayo na lang daw ang nananalo. Sa totoo lang po, right after nung mga edited na yan, bumagsak po ang sales namin. Binato po yung sasakyan ko. Yung teller ko minumura ng mga tao. Bakit? Dahil dinadaya na raw. Actually po ako hanggang ngayon, I still want to believe na yung integrity ng PCSO nandyan pa rin. Kasi for 20 years, walang nilabas si PCSO na nanalo. Bakit? Dahil naniniwala kami, lahat kami naniniwalang may nananalo talaga. Ako, na-witness ko po yan kasi dati po, talagang pag nagdo-draw po, may mga judges dyan, live lahat. So alam namin totoo po. Yung 400 na yon, masasabi ko po sa inyo na totoo po naman talaga yung mga nanalo na yun, hindi naman po yung dinaya. Possible talaga na may ganung manalo. Yung mga nananalo na sunod-sunod ngayon, possible pa rin po. Kaso nga lang, the way things, na nakikita namin lahat, nakakaduda na. Sobrang nakakaduda na po. And
Ano po yung nakakaduda na?
kasi po, katulad po yan, minadali yung iloto. Diba? Hindi pa sila ready sa system. Bakit yung sistema na kahit maraming problema, maayos naman po naming nagagamit? Bakit pinalitan? Hindi po ba dapat ang ginawa ninyo? Pag upo nyo, sayang wala rito si
Okay, mga
GM.
singito po. Attorney Pagano, yung sinabi niya kanina na every time magpalit ng administrasyon, ng management sa PCSO, na-out sila eh. Gagawa kayo ng eksperimento, kung ano man yung eksperimento na yon, at pumalpak, sa kanila ang tama. Yung kita nila ang tinatamaan. So dapat, kayo mga bagong upo dyan, kinukonsulta nyo sila. Sinasama nyo sana sila sa mga policy making. Dapat they're being consulted as well. Hindi eh. In a lot of cases, hindi kayo kinukonsulta, di ba? Gumagawa-gawa sila. Ito, si BP National President, Mr. Roel de Guzman. Are you being consulted sa mga
No,
ginagawa po
Mr.
siya?
Chair, hindi po. Hindi po kami kinoconsult. Actually, sir, may I say na before po wala yung 2,000 na mga lotto agents, affected na ho sila sa sales. Talagang mababa na ho ang sales nila. Lalo na po, especially po sa Visayas, Mindanao.
Dahil?
Dahil po yung sales po ng lotto, 30 to 70% po sa digit game. Yung digit game po, ang nangyayari, ginagamit po ng STL. So kung may 20,000 sales ang lotto outlet, 14,000, 15,000 yan sa digit game. Kinain na po yan ng STL. Kaya ho bumagsak ang sales ng lotto. Ito po, pwede pong pagsalita ng ating President ng Mindanao.
Mr. Street Osebana, Mokla, President. Ano yung sabihin ng MOCLA?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair.
Ano yung sabihin ng...
Moklahaya stands for Misamis Oriental Cagayan de Oro Lotto Agents Association.
Okay, go ahead,
And I
Mr.
represent
Bana.
them. Thank you for this opportunity of knowing the situation in Mindanao. Mr. Chair, as far as there are two issues here that the Lotto agents in Mindanao share with the Lotto agents nationwide. The first one is on e-Lotto. And many has been said already about the deficiencies of PCSO in obtaining the necessary requirements and procedures prior to the implementation. So we will leave that to the committee and for PCSO to rectify if there's what is needed to be corrected. But as far as the Lotto agents concerned, we oppose e-Lotto, Mr. Chair, because that will eventually wipe out us from business and Lotto outlets will become useless and irrelevant.
At nabanggit din po kanina ni Ma'am Clarissa Imperial or ni Mr. De Guzman, yung pagpasok ng STL, nabawasan din kayo ng...
Yes, Mr. Chair. One of the reasons given by PCSO for the termination is because of the low sales. But in our situation in Mindanao, we are not to be blamed if ever our sales are down. Why? First, our service provider there, Pacific Online, it's the same provider for e-Lotto. When there is a downtime, when the machines are not in order, when we call them, nobody answers. It takes weeks before our machines will be repaired. So what will happen to our sales?
Excuse me, Pacific Online, pakisagot. Napakainutin niyo po pala.
Mr. Chair, meron kasi tayong logistical sa Mindanao from our hub. So, nagkaroon din ng mga resignees, yung nagkataon na wala tayong mga personnel at the time. Isa lang yung naka-assign sa Cagayan area. Kaya nagre-replace kami. It takes time to replace yung mga field service.
So kailan po na magkakaroon kayo ng full stop para matugunan po yung mga problema nila?
Mr. Chair, wala na po kaming staff ngayon. It's PLS na po. Na-decommission na po kami.
With the introduction of the FLX, Your Honor, so the machines of being used by Pacific Online is not anymore being used. But in the past, prior to the FLX, we are using those machines and which are defective, and there's a joke among ourselves that when we call the hotline, it's a cold line because nobody answers, and it takes weeks to. Okay. So that's the first reason, Mr. Chair. The second one is when STL was implemented. Bettors of the digit games, because I would like to inform this committee that 80% of our total sales is on digit games, particularly 3D. So when STL came into the picture, naturally bettors go to STL because the minimum bet in STL is 1 peso, while the minimum bet in the Lotto outlet is 10 pesos. Aside from that, the payout in Lotto is 4,500 for 10 peso bet.
Directing the Senate Committee on Games and Amusement to undertake an inquiry in aid of legislation to review existing laws and regulations governing casino customers in the Philippines. Our guests are Mr. Alejandro Tenco, Chairman and CEO of PAGCOR, Daniel Cecilio of PAGCOR as well, Mr. Angelito Domingo of PAGCOR, Ms. Celestina Ador of PAGCOR, Attorney Marius Corpus of the GCG, Mr. Oscar Alvarez of PAGCOR before, and Mr. Gian Samson. Miss Bern J. Manzanilla, Police Major Edward Castulo, former Police Major Joy Turaray, and Lieutenant Colonel Irving Chan, Your Honor. And also from POPCOR, Mr. Gino Tolica and Mr. Sean Lester Cao. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Comsec.
Your Honor, shall I swear them?
Yes, yes.
Those who haven't taken their oath yet last sa hearing, can you please stand up? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this public hearing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ang hearing na ito ay continuation po sa nakaraan na kung saan nakatanggap tayo ng reklamo mula sa mga manggagawa ng PAGCOR na ayon sa kanila ay below minimum ang kanilang sweldo at ang pinakamasakit, 700 or something ang matatanggalan ng trabaho. And I already talked to the GCG. In fact, they visited my office. Natapos na nila ang gawin yung kanilang classification CPCS. And Mr. Altenco, sabi niyo po, nag-agree kayo doon. At pangalawa, wala pong matatanggal na mga empleyado. So I would like to comment from you or ano pong reaction niyo doon na sinabi po ng GCG. At sabi niyo nag-agree kayo na wala na po makatanggap na empleyado ng PAGCOR na below minimum?
Magandang umaga po, Senator, Your Honor. First of all, tungkol po dun sa sinabi ninyo na lumabas po kahapon yung CPCS Authority to Implement po galing sa GCG. Natanggap po ng aking tanggapan kahapon po ng umaga. At doon po ay yun na po ang bagong magiging mga salaries ng lahat po ng empleyado ng PAGCOR. At dahil lang po doon, wala naman pong balak kami kundi tunay na implement din po yung pinagkaloob na approval ng GCG.
In other words, wala na po mga taga-PAGCOR ang makatanggap ng below minimum wage?
Wala po. Gusto ko lang pong kung papayagan niyo po ako,
Okay po,
Senator.
Mr. Altenco.
Salamat po. Yan po ay hindi ko po kagagawan yung hindi sila tumatanggap ng below minimum. Inabutan ko na po, alam niyo naman po siguro, ako po'y nanombrahan lamang noong Agosto 2022 at talagang nakita ko po yung problemang yon. Kaagad ko pong inatasan ang compliance officer na nandito ngayon, kasalukuyan din po siyang corporate secretary, na makipag-ugnayan po sa GCG. Ang dati pong chairman, wala pa po yung mga nandito ngayon na nakaupo, ay si former Justice Alex Quiros. At nandun din po si Commissioner Berberabe, kung naalala ko. Kami po ay nagpunta na kaagad. Palagay ko po, baka pangalawang linggo o pangatlong linggo ko lang po sa trabaho sa GCG para idulog po yung at mag-follow up po doon sa CPCS. Dahil Senator Tulfo, ang sinasabi po nila, ako daw po ang nagdi-dribble. Sinabi po nila nung nakarang hearing, dinidribble ko daw po yung CPCS. Gusto ko lang po sanang mabigyan ng pagkakataon na makapagpaliwanag. Wala pong katotohanan na dinibol ko yon. Magiging karangalan ko nga po na sa panahon ko bilang chairman at CEO ng PAGCOR ay maipatutupad na ang bagong pay class ng PAGCOR employees. Kaya po siguro nandiyan naman...
So sino po nagdi-dribble, Chairman?
Wala pong...
GCG?
Hindi po. Sinabit
Andito sila
po. Nung po kasing nakaraang administrasyon, Senator...
Kasi when you were not here the last time, lumilitaw, base doon sa sinasabi ng mga kasamahan ninyo, ang may problema GCG. And GCG told me na ginagawa nila lahat, mabilis naman silang umaksyon.
Opo. August po, end of August po ako nung na-appoint. Kaagad po lahat ng mga kailangan na dokumento, ang na-discover po, Senator Tulfo, baka na hindi po nabanggit dito, yung pong nakaraang administrasyon ng PAGCOR, they had not a good relationship with, I have to say this, with GCG. So, ang nangyari po, Senator, hindi po nakapag-submit ng maraming requirements yung last administration. So, kinailangan po namin na kumuha pa ng isang third party na ang Development Academy of the Philippines para tulungan po tayong i-work back lahat po ng kailangan na dokumento. Dahil i-submit po natin yun at ang totoo po, sometime in December of last year, tumanggap po kami ng sulat sa GCG na lahat po ng dokumentong kailangan para maipatupad na at mapag-aralan na nila at mabigyan na po nila ng go signal ang PAGCOR or yung authority to implement ay nasa kanya na po lahat. So nakiusap po kami muli na kung maaari sana sa lalong madaling panahon ay mailabas na yon. At doon po, in fairness to GCG, meron pong sabi silang gagawin nila po ang lahat ng kanilang makakaya para po on or before January 31, 2024, hopefully by then, ang sabi nila, mailabas na po nila yung authority to implement. At yan naman po, Senator, ay lumabas kahapon. Sa tulong din po ninyo, nung tinawagan nyo sila noong 1 linggo, pero ang gusto ko lang pong sanang ipaalam sa lahat, hindi ko po drenable at talaga pong kung ang GCG na po siguro makakapagpatunay, halos po linggo-linggo may kinatawan po ang PAGCOR na nagpupunta at nagfa-follow up dito sa mga pangangailangan na ito.
Okay, sige. Ayoko na po ng blaming game dito.
Opo,
Kasi
salamat po.
hindi tayo matatapos. Ang
Yes, sir.
importante sa akin, so when will it become effective na magkakaroon na ng tamang pasweldo ang PAGCOR para sa mga empleyado at yan po ay hindi na below minimum wage at retroactive.
Yes. Ayun po, Senator, October 2021 po. Pinapaliwanag ko
So
po
October
ito.
2021,
Up to December 31,
Retro.
2023, yung recto. 27 buwan po yun, kung hindi ako nagkakamali. Kaya po, Senator, ang magandang balita po sa lahat ng PAGCORians, tatanggap po sila ng windfall na malalaking halaga para na lang pati po yung mga nagretiro. Pati po yung nagretiro between October 2021 hanggang December 31, lahat po yun ay padadalan at tatawagan at padadalan ng mga wages due them. So, yun po, Senator, pinaliliwanag ko po yun sa lahat ng town hall meeting. Hindi ko po maintindihan kung bakit parang hindi nila either tanggapin o hindi nila
Okay.
Pero definite po yun, February, tinatanong niyo po, kailan po ma-implement? Sasagutin ko lang po, Senator, nag-usap na po kami kagabi ng HR na nandito ngayon. Nandito po yung kinatawan ng Provident, pinatawag nyo rin, si Ma'am Tina Ador. Nandyan din po yung accounting nung nakaraan, nandito rin po. Gusto ko pong ipalam sa inyo, nagkasundo na kami, magdadagdag po kami ng tao dahil may marami pong proseso dokumento. Sa February 15 po, so 2 weeks from now, pipilitin namin mag-umpisa na by batches at ang uunahin po natin, Senator, yung mabababa muna na job grade.
okay.
Yung po ang unang batch na parireleasan na natin nung pong tinatawag na retro from October 2021 po hanggang December 31, 2024. 27 months po yan, Senator Tulfo. Yun po.
Thank you, Mr. Altenco. Reaksyon mula kay Mr. Oscar Alvarez, Chairman and President ng...
Magandang hapon po, buting
No, you're
chairman.
not the Chairman and President ng PAGCOR?
Ako po.
Di ba sa ano ka, yung sa Union?
Pagsiya po sa union.
Pasaya, ba't nilagay PAGCOR? Chairman,
Hindi ko napansin.
Na-promote po si...
Ako na palang pumalit sa kanya.
Ako po mananaog muna.
Papalitan mo na.
Senator Tulfo, ako po magpapaalam muna at meron na po palang bagong chairman at Pangulo ang PAGCOR.
Chairman Pasaya, nagulat ako.
Ako po magpapaalam na muna kung papayagan ninyo.
No, Mr. Altenco.
Dahil na-record
Go ahead.
na po.
Typographical error lang po to.
Mr. Alvarez, ano pong reaksyon niyo doon, sir?
Reaction ko po, nung sinasabi niyan, may naakusan ako ng didribble. Wala akong sinabing pangalan kung sino nagdidribble. Kaya po lang naman namin nasabi nagdidribble kasi nung inisyuhan po kami ng redundancy order na kami po ay tsogi na at sibak na at mag-aral na kaming uminom na lambanog, doon na po kami na bahala na itong kakapiranggot na sweldo namin na hindi pa si PCS rate, ito po yung ibibigay niya sa amin na pasweldo. Samantalang po, kung tutusin, titingnan mo po yung kanilang sinabi dito, an employee under the redundancy program, you will receive an initial, you will receive initial total estimated amount of 2 million. 37 years in service. Yun lang po ang, estimated lang po ang matatanggap ko. Kami po ay, hindi ko pwede itago to sa amisis ko. Kasi pag ganyan pong retirement, kailangan nag-uusap kami yan. Nung sinabi ko sa kanya na hindi muna ako mag-retire, sinampal niya ako bigla, natutulog kami. Ay kaya ang ginawa ko, sige mahal, bigyan mo po ako ng 3 araw para magdesisyon. Kasi sabi niya, hindi naman siguradong ibigay yan. Kasi makikita mo dito, ang sabi dito, maybe adjusted to. So walang kasiguruhan. Ang pangatlo ay yung ex gratia, may considered. So sabi ng misis ko, marunong naman po magbasa ng English. Ang sigurado lang dyan siguro yung 2 million na retirement mo.
Sir, sandali ah. Mamaya na po muna yan.
Sige po.
Doon muna tayo sa reaction mo na wala nang minimum wage, below minimum wage na matatanggap na mga tagapag-core at retroactive from October 21 hanggang
Hindi, October 2021 po.
October 2021 to
December
December
2024.
2024. 2023, sorry.
23.
Ano pong reaction niyo doon? Mamaya na po yung pension muna.
Ako po ay nagpapasalamat din. Sa wakas ay inaprubahan po ng GCG. Kaya ako yung lubos na papasalamat kay Chairman Marcos po ng GCG na na-aprubahan niya po. Sa tagal namin po nag-aantay. Sobrang tagal na po kami nagtitiis po na mababang sweldo. Okay lang po sa amin yon na mababang sweldo namin. Pero nung makatanggap po kami ng dandansi, diyan na po kami ng lumo. Kasi apektado po kami namin.
lang muna. Okay, so wala nang makatanggap ng pag-Korean ng below minimum wage. Effective immediately, bagkos magkakaroon pa kayo ng retro. Tama? Okay sa inyo yun. Okay, pangalawa, issue, mamaya na po yung sa retirement muna, no? Pangalawa, wala pong matatanggal ng mga empleyado.
Ayon po sa inyong hiniling sa GCG, habang po pinag-aaralan pa ng GCG yung aming desisyon, 28,000 pesos po.
Sige, nandun tayo. How about yung sa year-end bonus?
Wala pa
Performance rating na 1 million. Meron pa kayong mga karagdagang katanungan? Pakisubmit na lamang po.
Sir, I have provided you tests for them for PAGCOR. Sana ibigay niyo po sa kanila and give them 24 hours to solve.
This is what I'll do, Mr. Cordero. Isa sa
Lagi po sanang tandaan ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno ang sinabi sa Konstitusyon, Artikulo 3, Seksyon 1, hindi dapat alisan ng buhay, kalayaan o ari-arian ang sinumang tao nang hindi kaparaanan ng batas. Di pagkaitan ng sinumang tao, kailangan ibigay ang pangangalaga ng batas pantay-pantay sa bawat Pilipino.
Internet providers and electricity distributors. These companies apply for permits to install these structures and attach these cables, but there seems to be nobody actively regulating them. Nobody is monitoring them, in short. Once a wire is no longer in use, they shall leave it there. And new utility providers just keep on adding and adding and adding more wires. Some would give an excuse that they cannot just remove the useless and abandoned wires because hindi naman daw sa kanila yun. So nagmumukha pong tambakan ang mga poste natin ng mga kable na nagkakabulbol at wala nang pakinabang. Tapos, minsan pa po, ginagawa pa nila yung storage facility para madali silang mag-ayos. May ilang nag-iwan ng mga rolyo ng kable para kung may ayusin, nandun agad, extra cables.
September 5, tumayo po tayong lahat sa bulwagang ito at humingi po ng saklolo. Kagyat pong umaksyon ang Warrior Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, kaakibat po ang bar top-notcher Minority Leader Aquilino Pimentel para harapin ang kasong mistaken identity ni Tatay Muhammad Makaantal Said. Sa edad po na 62 years old, isa pong senior. Umalingaw-ngaw ang boses ng mga senador upang ipaglaban ang karapatan ni Muhammad Makaantal Said. Dumaan po ang ilang buwan at bagong taon na natiling nakapiit po si Tatay Said para sa mga akusasyong wala siyang kinalaman. Sa mga buwang ito, sa patnubay pa rin po ng lupon ng mga senado at sa kapangyarihan po ng umaapaw na pirma ng 24 na senador, hindi po tumigil ang ating tanggapan sa pagsubaybay sa pag-usad ng kasong naihain laban kay Tatay Said. Mula po sa Taguig hanggang Zamboanga Peninsula, Sulu at Tawi-Tawi. Hindi rin po tumigil ang Public Attorney's Office sa pangunguna nila District Public Attorney Ariel Ruiz, Attorney Claudette Claudel, Attorney Bridget Servino, Attorney Maria Perpetua Ramos, Regional Public Attorney Edgardo Gonzales, Attorney Anesito Tiempo, Attorney Muhammad Ahmad Amsawa, at sa pamumuno ni PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta upang sigurihing malinis si Tatay Said at ang kanyang pangalan ay maalis po dito sa mga karumal-dumal na krimen. Matapos po ang mahabang paghihintay at paglilitis, si Tatay Said po ay nakalaya na. Ginoong Pangulo, dahil po sa ipinakitang pagmamahal ng Senado at ipinaglaban ng Senado na makalaya si Tatay. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, nandito po ngayon si Tatay, nakalabas na po siya. Maraming salamat po. Alam niyo po, ito po ay isang tagumpay sapagkat dito ay pinakikita, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ang boses ng Senado.
Incorporated na nagmamay-ari ng mga kableng yan nung nalapitan po ng mga naberyan nila. Ano ang mga sinabi? Magsumiti raw ng pictures at video para ma-refer sa kanilang legal at pag-aaralan. Pagkatapos po noon, aming tinawagan ng MMDA. Ang sagot lang sa amin ng magaling na MMDA, hindi daw nila jurisdiction yung nangyari. Kawawang mga nilalang. Mga walang malay na naghanap buhay lang at namamalengke sana ay muntik pang mabawian ng buhay. At ito mga may kasalanang walang urgency at malasakit sa mga tao. Dahil sa pangyayaring ito, aking pong pinatingnan ang estado ng mga kable sa ating mga kapaligiran. Mr. President, just last August 2023, dahil sa mga nag-ipon-ipon na kable sa mga poste ng kuryente sa Binondo, sa tabi mismo ng Binondo Church, 4 na posteng bumagsak dahil sa bigat. Nabagsakan po ang ilang mga sasakyan. Naputol ang kuryente at ibang telco services. Kasamang internet doon sa area na yun. Pagkatapos po, sinarang kalye upang maayos ang mga bumagsak na poste kaya nagdulot ng traffic. Mr. President, ito po mga spaghetti wires ang nagdudulot ng napakaraming problema para sa ating bayan.
Camarines Norte and Nueva Ecija, our colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, for his manifestation, Mr. President.
Yes, and also the adopted son of Mindanao, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I know you have good news for us today, for the record. You're recognized, sir.
Maraming salamat po, aming mandirigmang Ginoong Tagapangulo at sa atin pong pinunong mayorya. A'udhu billahi minasyaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bismillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sa lahat po ng bumubuo ng lupon ng pagpupulong na ito, nais ko pong ibalita ang tagumpay ng demokrasya sa ating inang bayang Pilipinas na sumibol sa bulwagang ito. Kung inyo pong mamarapatin, babalikan ko po sana ang nakalipas na 6 na buwan. Noong pong Augusto 10, 2023, habang papunta sa Kuala Lumpur, ay hinarang po si Tatay Muhammad Said ng mga tauhan ng Bureau of Immigration sa Naya, Terminal 3. Matapos pong magkaroon ng alert ang kanyang pangalan dahil sa isang Interpol Red Notice at ipinasa sa NBI International Airport Investigation Division. Augusto 29, sa ulat ng NBI, ang hinahanap ng kinaukulan na si Muhammad Said alias Ama Maas ay wanted dahil sa kanyang partisipasyon o pamumuno sa 25 counts of frustrated murder, 3 separate murder cases, kidnapping with murder, at kidnap with serious illegal detention. September 5, tumayo po tayong lahat sa bulwagang ito at humingi po ng saklolo, kagyat pong umaksyon ang Warrior Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, kaakibat po ang bar top-notcher Minority Leader Aquilino Pimentel para harapin ang kasong mistaken identity ni Tatay Muhammad Makaantal Said. Sa edad po na 62 years old, isa pong senior. Umalingaw-ngaw ang boses ng mga senador upang ipaglaban ang karapatan ni Muhammad Makaantal Said. Dumaan po ang ilang buwan at bagong taon, na natiling nakapiit po si Tatay Said para sa mga akusasyong wala siyang kinalaman. Sa mga buwang ito, sa patnubay pa rin po ng lupon ng Senado at sa kapangyarihan po ng umaapaw na pirma ng 24 na senador, hindi po tumigil ang ating tanggapan sa pagsubaybay sa pag-usad ng kasong naihain laban kay Tatay Said. Mula po sa Taguig hanggang Zamboanga Peninsula, Sulu at Tawi-Tawi. Hindi rin po tumigil ang Public Attorney's Office sa pangunguna nila District Public Attorney Ariel Ruiz, Attorney Claudette Claudel, Attorney Bridget Servino, Attorney Maria Perpetua Ramos, Regional Public Attorney Edgardo Gonzales, Attorney Anesito Tiempo, Attorney Muhammad Ahmad Amsawa, at sa pamumuno ni PAO Chief Attorney Persida Acosta upang sigurihing malinis si Tatay Said at ang kanyang pangalan ay maalis po dito sa mga karumal-dumal na krimen. Matapos po ang mahabang paghihintay at paglilitis, si Tatay Said po ay nakalaya na. Ginoong Pangulo, dahil po sa ipinakitang pagmamahal ng Senado at ipinaglaban ng Senado na makalaya si Tatay. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, nandito po ngayon si Tatay, nakalabas na po siya. Maraming salamat po. Alam niyo po, ito po ay isang tagumpay sapagkat dito ay pinakikita, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, ang boses ng Senado. Na kapag nag-ingay at ipinaglaban ng Senado, talaga pong merong talagang demokrasyang mararamdaman ang ating mga kababayan. Ngayon po, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, hindi po natapos ang kwento sapagkat patuloy po ang pagiging biktima ng pangalang Ama Maas. Sapagkat pagkatapos po nating mapagtagumpayan ngayon si Tatay, meron naman pong isang kapangalan pa uli. Meron na naman pong isang individual na humihingi ng tulong sa atin sapagkat ang isang nangangalang Muhammad Pangkoga Said, siya po ang lumabas na litrato dito. Siya po yan. Ito po yung nilabas ng litrato ng ating mga naghahanap ng kidnapper. Ito po yung lumabas. Ito pong taong ito ay humihingi din ng tulong sa atin na hindi ako yan. Sapagkat pinatutunayan po ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, na patay na po. Patay na po yung pinaghahanap ng batas. Siya po ay matagal nang nakaratay. Kaya sana po ay Ginoong Tagapangulo, ang kaso po ng mistaken identity ay hindi biro-biro. Ito po ay hindi makatwiran, makatarungan at makatao. Hindi na po ito katanggap-tanggap, lalo na sa panahon na bumubuhos ang technology at innovations. Kung nais po nating tunay na maibalik ang tiwala ng publiko at patatagin ang pundasyon ng isang makatarungang lipunan, sana po ay wala nang matulad kay Tatay Muhammad at kay Muhammad Pangkoga Said. Lagi po sanang tandaan ng mga ahensya ng gobyerno ang sinabi sa Konstitusyon, Artikulo 3, Seksyon 1, hindi dapat alisan ng buhay, kalayaan o ari-arian ang sinumang tao nang hindi kaparaanan ng batas. Di pagkaitan ng sinumang tao, kailangan ibigay ang pangangalaga ng batas pantay-pantay sa bawat Pilipino. Muli po, Ginoong Pangulo, ako po'y nagpapasalamat sa lupon ng mga Senado, sa lupon ng mga senador, ang inyo pong 24 na pirma ay siyang tunay na pirma ng demokrasya ng pelikulang Pilipino ng Republika ng Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po kayo, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, dahil sa inyong pagtutok nitong kasong ito at pagkuha ng suporta ng lahat ng membro ng Senado. So, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I just make a very short manifestation? First of all, we laud the efforts of our dear colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I distinctly remember that very time when he talked to me about it, and I was the first one to volunteer to distribute to ask for the signatures of our colleagues here in this August chamber in this particular incident, Mr. President. But Mr. President, more than anything, despite the fact that we are happy that Mr. Muhammad Said is here with us, we would like to apologize to him, Mr. President, on behalf ng mga kawaninang pamahalaan sa gobyerno. Humihingi po kami ng paumanhin. Tatay, sir, paumanhin po sa pagkukulang ng ating pamahalaan, ng ating gobyerno. Nakakalungkot po, Mr. President, and this is the reason why I would request the gentleman from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte to instead of just making it as a manifestation, we convert his manifestation into a privileged speech so that we can refer it, perhaps, Mr. President, in the Rules Committee. And I would take the lead if with your blessing, Mr. President. I spoke with our minority leader to look into this so that, Mr. President, we can come up with a report and ask the concerned government agencies, PNP, DOJ, BID, kung sino man, Mr. President. Hindi po biro ito. Hindi po dapat ito sabihing isolated case, Mr. President, kasi pagkasabi pa nga po nung ating kasamahan na nandito, nakalaya na po si Muhammad Said, meron na namang another Muhammad Said na pinapangalanan at tinuturo, samantalang ang AFP pala sinasabing matagal ng malamig na bangkay itong tao na ito. Mr. President, hindi po biro ito, and we feel that saying sorry is not enough, Mr. President. Dapat may compensation, dapat humingi ng public apology kung sino man yung mga lousy na nagpalabas ng ganitong kautusan, Mr. President, without having a strong basis to arrest and detain our visitor today, Mr. President. I also would like to point out, Mr. President, that this representation filed Senate Bill number 1607, amending RA number 7309, which created the Board of Claims under the Department of Justice. Our Senate Minority Leader is also our co-author, Mr. President, kasi yung current law provides that victims are only entitled to a mere 1,000 pesos per month of unjust detention or imprisonment, or a maximum of 10,000 pesos for all other cases, Mr. President. Hindi ho makatarungan ito kung pag-uusapan natin ang hustisya, nakakahiya po para sa isang kawani ng pamahalaan o isang government official, employee, na magsabing ito ay okay lang at parte ito ng justice system natin. Mr. President, we feel that and as we push this measure, we wanted to increase the amount of compensation from 1,000 to 5,000 per month, subject to a maximum of 300,000 for victims of illegal detention and 50,000 for victims of other crimes. We hope to see an improvement, Mr. President. That's all I can say right now. We are dying to see a big improvement, Mr. President, in our justice system, not only through this bill, but also to this incident right now that had happened right before our very eyes, Mr. President. As I met Mr. Muhammad Said kanina, Mr. President, damang-dama ko, Mr. President, yung pinagdaanan po niya. Tao lang ho tayo eh. Masakit po yung ginawa sa kanya, Mr. President. Nakakahiya po na parte tayo ng gobyerno, tas ganun lang po yung mangyayari, tapos hihingi lang ng sorry yung government agency. So again, Mr. President, with the indulgence of my colleagues, if I can refer this privileged speech of our dear colleague, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, to the Committee on Rules, Mr. President.
Yes, and I join your
Thank you.
motion dahil unang-una, alam mo, tama sinabi ni Senator Joel. Yan ang pinag-usapan natin dyan na Manong kanina. Sabi ko, ganyan na lang ba? Na ilalabas ka lang na wala pa nga yatang hindi pa humingi ng paumanhin ng mga agencies. Hindi pa sila nabibigay ng formal apology. Tayo pa lang sa Senado in behalf of the government of the Philippines. Pero alam mo, hindi dapat ganyan lang. Dapat they should do their casework more efficiently. Tama sinabi ni Senator Padilla kanina na modernized na lahat, di ba? Meron ng DNA, meron ng yung mga thumb marks, mga digital na lahat itong mga larawan nila. Hindi na dapat mangyari muli ito sa ating mga kababayan. At tama po si Senator Robin, baka iisap lamang siya sa napakarami, no? Napakaraming may mga problemang ganito na mistaken identity. Kaya importante dyan ay tulungan natin si Manong. I agree na we come up with a formal notice sa mga ahensya like NBI, sa Bureau of Immigrations, pati yung Department of Justice, and so that they can give a formal apology and hopefully just compensation. Yung illegal detention na nangyari dun sa kanya, arbitrary detention is something that siguro is an injustice, no? Injustice talaga. Kung walang hustisya, sa pangyayaring yon. So sa ating mga kapatid na Muslim, I'm so happy, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, God is great truly, na may hustisya po. And you have the support of the Senate. Pagka ganun, ang tutulungan talaga namin dito sa Senado, kapakanan natin mga kababayan, no matter how difficult it is. Basta tumakbo lang po kayo dito sa Senado, tutulungan po kayo. At lahat po kami, lahat po kami hinalal ninyo Hindi po kami halal na isang distrito. Kami po halal na mga taga Barm, taga Ilocos Norte, taga Visayas, taga Cebu. Kaya lahat po ng hinanakit at hinanaing ng ating mga kababayan sa iba't ibang parte ng Pilipinas, dito po ang puntahan sa Senado dahil yan po ang trabaho namin, na tulungan kayo. So, without further ado, Majority Leader, you can refer the
Yes, Mr. President,
the
I
speech
move
of
that
the
we
gentleman.
refer the speech of the gentleman from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte, Senator Robin Hood Padilla, and all the manifestations thereon to the Committee on Rules. I so move, Mr.
And
President.
before I do that, I just also want to thank once again Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Yes.
Kung hindi dahil sa iyo, Padre, hindi mo tinutukan ito, siguro baka naiwan ng nasa kulungan si Mohammed Said. So, we have to give respect where respect is due. Mabuhay ka, sir, and continue to fight for the needs of our kababayan, particularly our Muslim brothers in Mindanao. Maraming salamat sa iyo. Mabuhay ka. Thank you.
Move for the previous motion, Mr. President.
There being no objection to the motion is approved.
No other than our idol, Senator Raffy Tulfo, to deliver his privileged speech.
Our
So moved,
distinguished
Mr.
colleague, Senator Raffy Tulfo is recognized, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Gusto ko po ihain sa inyo ngayong araw na ito ang spaghetti. Hindi po ito yung spaghetti na ikinakain natin sa handaan o yung kantang spaghetti. Sa halip, ito pong spaghetti na ito ay matuturing kong panganib at perwisyo sa ating mga kababayan. I present to you spaghetti wires and cables. My staff went around the metro to take photos of these entangled and voluminous wires and cables, and it was very easy to find them. Alam ko, pamilyar po tayong lahat sa mga ito. Ang sakit po sa mga mata. My attention was recently called regarding the spaghetti wires when several complainants came to my program last Friday because they got into an accident due to some hanging wires along EDSA. Panoorin po natin. Mr. President,
Dito nakakabli ng kawad po.
Oh, kaya may ano ka sa liig,
Opo, sir.
bandage.
Kaya po yung time na yun, sir, binitawan ko na po yung motor ko, hindi ko na po alam kung anong nangyari sa amin. Sa gitna po ng kalsada, sir. Buti lang po yung mga ibang motorcycle rider na tumulong sa amin. Kasi kung may kasunod pong nangyari sa amin pagkatumba, baka nasagasaan na po kami noon.
Pati si ma'am.
Opo.
Ang ulo ko
Sa
lang ang
Ma'am Telfo.
tumama. Tapos yung ipin ko.
We already contacted Philippine Global Communications Incorporated through their customer service representative po. We informed po na mayroon pong ganong insidente nangyari, and also we emailed the police report po.
Ano pong sagot nila, Corporal?
Ang sabi po nung nakausap natin na si Mika po ay na-forward na daw po nila yung police report doon po sa kanilang legal.
Kausapin ko yung chairman ng MMDA. Of course, responsable ng may-ari ng kable. Pero dapat bilang sila yung namamahala niya sa mga kalye, sa EDSA, yung MMDA dapat nakita nila na may mga nakabalanda ng kable, tinawagan nila yung Philippine Global para ipaayos.
Mr. President, 4 incidents involving just that particular area in EDSA, and yet, kailangan pa po nila pumunta sa aking programa para magsumbong. Ito pong mga taga-Philippine Global Communications Incorporated na nagmamay-ari ng mga kabling yan nung nalapitan po ng mga naberya nila. Ano ang mga sinabi? Magsumiti raw ng pictures at video para ma-refer sa kanilang legal at pag-aaralan. Pagkatapos po noon, aming tinawagan ng MMDA. Ang sagot lang sa amin ng magaling na MMDA, hindi daw nila jurisdiction yung nangyari. Kawawang mga nila lang. Mga walang malay na naghanap buhay lang at namamalengke sana ay muntik pang mabawian ng buhay. At ito mga may kasalanang walang urgency at malasakit sa mga tao. Ibabato pa sa legal. At ang MMDA na sana ay ang sangay ng gobyerno na maaaring nakagawa ng paraan upang mapigilan ang mga aksidente sa pamagitan ng pagtawag ng atensyon nitong Philippine Global Communications ay umiiwas sa kanilang responsibilidad. Dahil sa pangyayaring ito, aking pong pinatingnan ang estado ng mga kable sa ating mga kapaligiran. Mr. President, just last August 2023, dahil sa mga nag-ipon-ipon na kable sa mga poste ng kuryente sa Binondo, sa tabi mismo ng Binondo Church, 4 na posteng bumagsak dahil sa bigat. Nabagsakan po ang ilang mga sasakyan. Naputol ang kuryente at ibang telco services. Kasamang internet doon sa area na yun. Pagkatapos po, sinarang kalye upang maayos ang mga bumagsak na poste kaya nagdulot ng traffic. Mr. President, ito po mga spaghetti wires ang nagdudulot ng napakaraming problema para sa ating bayan. Number one, just like in the case that was brought to me, it is a risk to life and limb. It poses real danger to our citizens. Ito lang po is enough to make this matter a national concern. It could also be a cause of terrible traffic. Kapag ito pong mga kable at mga poste bumagsak, ito po ay magdudulot ng matinding traffic. Number three, damage to property. Just like the one in Binondo, it fell on cars parked along the street. If these wires are not maintained well, it is known to cause fire as well. Number four, damage to heritage sites. Kung magagawin po tayo sa Intramuros, madami din po mga ganitong spaghetti wires. And if these wires damage the properties there, hindi po madaling mag-restore ng mga lugar na luma na at kung masunog halos, imposible na maibalik ito sa dati. Number five, it is an eyesore. As mentioned earlier, tourists who visit Intramuros see how these lines hamper the beautiful sights there. Ang sakit po sa mata ng mga spaghetti wires na ito. And number six, interrupted in electricity and telecommunications. Just like what happened in Binondo when it fell, businesses, including banks, lost their internet. What if hospitals are affected and they experience brownouts for a long period of time, especially in the middle of a surgery? Mahirap po yung ganong klaseng sitwasyon. All these possible impending danger and negative effects could be prevented if people who are responsible would just stop looking the other way and pretend that these wires do not exist. Mr. President, bakit nga ba nagkakaganito ang mga wires at kable natin? It seems that these wires are mostly from utility companies such as telecommunication, internet providers, and electricity distributors. These companies apply for permits to install these structures and attach these cables, but there seems to be nobody actively regulating them. Nobody is monitoring them, in short. Once a wire is no longer in use, they shall leave it there. And new utility providers just keep on adding and adding and adding more wires. Some would give an excuse that they cannot just remove the useless and abandoned wires because hindi naman daw sa kanila yun. So nagmumukha pong tambakan ang mga poste natin ng mga kable na nagkakabulbol at wala nang pakinabang. Tapos, minsan pa po, ginagawa pa nila yung storage facility para madali silang mag-ayos. May ilang nag-iwan ng mga rolyo ng kable para kung may ayusin, nandun agad extra cables. Mr. President, who issues the permit for this construction and installation? We have the building officials issuing building permits. These are supposed to go to the city engineering office. But how come it is as if after submitting the requirements, these companies have a free hand already in whatever they hang in these poles? There should be a continuous monitoring so that the permits could be lifted when they are not compliant. Ito pong Philippine Global Communications Incorporated ay dapat ma-review ang kanilang permit to operate. They are not doing their job properly. And who knows, ilan pa mga kable nila ang nagdudulot sa mga perwisyo sa tao. Mr. President, in the case that happened to the complainants that approached me, there is a clear lack of accountability on the telcos and the government regulating agencies. We have to determine whose liability this is. LGU ba? DPWH? Or the telcos, all electric distribution companies? There should be more national direction regarding these concerns. There are individuals' actions in some areas. For example, in Davao, they already installed their cables underground. Matagal na po ito pinopropose ni Architect Palafox. What is stopping us from implementing this? And while this is pending, there are some LGUs like in Cebu and Valenzuela that did a clearing drive in their area of these cables. In Pasig, they have an ordinance holding telcos and electric companies liable for failure to clear these lines. Maybe we could explore these options so that these spaghetti wires could finally be resolved and no more life could be put at risk. I believe that the Committee on Public Works under the chairmanship of Senator Buong Revilla could ably address this. And as chairman of the Committee on Energy, I will take the cudgels against the electric distribution companies. If there are adjustments that we need to make in our laws and put the responsibility on those businesses making use of these posts and cables, I know we can work on these together. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Rafi Tulfo. Session suspended.
Sir, maidagdag ko lamang po. Nung gabi po na yun, 4 na sunod-sunod po yung nadisgrasya. 4 po. Maliban pa po sa kanila, may mga nauna po. Siya po yung isa sa mga biktima. Bali, 12 midnight po. Alas 1:30 po ng umaga. At meron pa rin pong nabasagan po ng windshield.
Mr. President, Senators Revilla and Nancy Binay would just like to insert into the records their co-sponsorship speech. Next to co-sponsor, Mr. President, is the distinguished gentleman from Davao and the province of Bohol, no other than our idol, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. I move that he be recognized.
Our brother from Mindanao, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, and from Bohol is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, Majority Leader. Good afternoon, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues. I rise today before this August chamber to co-sponsor Senate Bill number 2534 under Committee Report number 190 entitled Wage Increase Act of 2023, which aims to increase the minimum wage rate of all workers in the private sector, whether agricultural or non-agricultural, by 100 pesos a day. It gives me great honor and pride to take part in furthering this noble cause of directly aiding our countrymen's life through a legislated wage increase. This undertaking will somehow ease the financial burden of several of our people who continue to make ends meet. Hopefully, may this measure also give even a little amount of comfort to some. We very well know that even before the pandemic, workers in the private sector have struggled in their everyday lives to put food on their plate. Inflation is a reality that needs to be addressed by the government with urgency. I am very fortunate to belong to an institution that has always been sensitive to the plight of the ordinary Filipino. The Senate, through this legislation, has committed itself to not only decrease the suffering of our people, but also end it. Magkano po ba ang dignidad ng isang Pilipinong manggagawa? Ito po ay kailanman hindi masusukat ng anumang halaga ng salapi. Buong-buo po ang aking pagsuporta sa dagdag ng 100 piso sa sahod ng ating mga manggagawa. Ngunit wala rin naman po sigurong masama kung gusto pa natin itong dagdagan pa. Bagamat may tuturing po na pampaampat ng pagdurugo o pananandaliang lunas ang ating panukala na ito, nawa po ay kahit papaano ay makapagbigay ito ng kahit kaunting kaluwagan at espasyo para makahinga ang ating mga kababayan. To reiterate, there is no monetary amount that can ever measure the dignity of the Filipino worker. However, Mr. President, I hope the workers will consider this legislative measure as a first tranche of efforts that the Senate will do to requite the unmeasurable contribution of minimum wage workers to our economy. Malayo-layo pa po ang ating lalakbayin bilang isang bansa para makamit ang ating minimithing pag-unlad at ganap na pagwawagi laban sa kahirapan. Pero ituring po natin ang panukalang ito na isa sa marami pa nating mga hakbang patungo sa pagbibigay ng kaginhawaan sa buhay ng ating mga manggagawa. Ika nga po ng mga kabataan ngayon, malayo pa, pero malayo na. Pasasaan pa't makakarating din. Thank you, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat, Senator Bato de la Rosa.
Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished gentleman from Camarines Norte and Nueva Ecija, no other than our idol, Senator Robin Hood Padilla. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Our dear brother, adopted son of Mindanao and from Nueva Ecija and Camarines Norte, Senator Robin Hood Padilla is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo at sa ating pinunong mayorya. Bismillah, gusto ko lamang pong magbigay ng isang matipunong saludo sa amin pong mga kasamang senador na nagbigay po ng panukalang ito. Unang-una na po, syempre, kay Senator Jingo Estrada at sa ating pong Warrior Senate President, Senator Mig Subiri, at sa lahat po ng mga author ng panukala na ito. Nais ko lamang din pong ipahatid ang aking intensyon na maging kapwa may akda at kapwa sponsor ng Senate Bill number 2534 sa ilalim ng Committee Report number 190. Ang paghahain po ng panukalang ito sa plenaryo ay patotoo na mayroong mga tengang nakikinig at pusong nakakaunawa sa pinagdadaanan ng mga mamamayang Pilipino. At bilang gusto ko lamang pong isunod, mahal na Ginoong Pangulo, na sana po ay maharap din po natin ang usapin ng patungkol sa union, na ito po ay nagiging suliranin na rin ng ating mga manggagawa sapagkat nagkakaroon po tayo ng mga homegrown unions na ito po ay nagiging sagabal, nagiging problema, suliranin ng ating mga manggagawa sapagkat ang sinasabi po sa ating konstitusyon dapat sila, mga manggagawa, ang nagtatayo ng union, hindi yung mismong kanilang pinagtatrabahuan. Yun lamang po, maraming salamat po, mabuhay po kayo at muli po akong sumasaludo. Isa pong karangalan sa inyong lingkod na maging bahagi ng panukalang batas na ito. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Maraming salamat din, Ginoong Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Mr. President, Senator Bato de la Rosa is seeking the floor. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, this representation is requesting to be made as a co-author of this particular measure with the permission of the main author, Mr. President.
Yes. Well, I'm the
By all
principal author din ako, and together with the sponsor. I would suggest that we make all members. I think no members against this measure. Mr.
I would love to make that motion, Mr. President, if you want me to, but it's up to you, Mr. President.
Why not? It's up
I
to
think
them.
a lot of our colleagues have signified their
Intention
intention,
to support.
Mr. President, and at the proper time, probably, Mr. President.
Probably the
we'll,
proper time, after the debates.
Yes, Mr. President. Because in the Senate, we
Respect.
debate
Yeah,
and
we
talk
respect.
and
We
debate.
respect every individual opinion and
Yes.
position. Yes.
No fast break po yung binibigay, sinasabi ni Senator Bato. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished lady from Akbayan, our Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Another one of our fighters and advocates of wage increase in the Senate, no other than our distinguished Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Senator Risa Ontiveros is recognized.
Salamat kaayo, Mr. President. Mr. President, I wish to co-sponsor this bill as support to increase the minimum wage as a starting point, leading to a living wage. Naniniwala po ako na mismong ganitong uri ng mga panukalang batas ang dapat tutukan ng lehislatura, parehong Senado at House of Representatives. After all, this is precisely the mandate of our 1987 Constitution. Article 13, Section 1 declares that the Congress shall give a highest priority to the enactment of measures that protect and enhance the right of all the people to human dignity, reduce social, economic, and political inequalities, and remove cultural inequities by equitably diffusing wealth and political power for the common good. Pagpapabuti sa kapakanan ng karaniwang Pilipino ang tanging rason kung bakit tayo narito. Kasabay po nito, dapat rin nating ikonsidera ang mas malawak pang suporta ng gobyerno sa MSMEs. Ito ang mga dapat nating inaaral at tinatrabaho, hindi ang pekeng TI at questionableng tsa-tsa. Salamat kaayo, Mr. President.
Maraming salamat, Senator
Thank you,
Risa
Mr. President. Last but not the least, to co-sponsor the measure is the distinguished lady from Taguig and Pateros, no other than our resident athlete, Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano. I move that she be recognized, Mr.
Our
President.
distinguished colleague, Senator Pia Cayetano, the representative of Taguig Pateros, and the Republic of the Philippines is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, just a very short co-sponsorship speech. Mr. President, as the Senate Committee Chair of the Committee on Sustainable Development, Goals, Innovation, Futures Thinking, we talk about sustainable development. We broadcast to the world, we show pictures of our beautiful landscape, seascape, and of course, the picture of modernization. But as they say, Mr. President, you can only determine truly how advanced or how developed a country is when you look at how they treat the most vulnerable in their society. So when we look at families who cannot even feed their children 3 meals a day, who struggle to put literally a roof over the head, where they live in shanties, they live, Mr. President, in these worn tarps that are used during political campaigns, di ba? After the campaign, you'll see na bubong na yan ng mga bahay, pader na yan ng kanilang barong-barong. This is how millions of people live in the Philippines, Mr. President. So when we take time dealing with political issues, It takes time away from dealing with the poorest of the poor who need our support to live a decent life. Mr. President, in our show, Cayetano in Action with Boy Abunda, we often tackle problems that include marital problems, nagbubugbugan na asawa, utang, minsan utang ng nanay sa anak na hindi na nag-usap ang nanay at anak for 3 years dahil sa utang, couples who separate dahil sa whatever conflict they have. 99%, Mr. President, the root of their problem is poverty. Sheer poverty. May daycare teacher na sinumbong ang isang nanay dahil hindi na pinapasok sa daycare ang kanyang anak. And the reason is, sobra siyang nahihiya dahil wala siyang pagkain na mabigay sa anak niya, papasok daw yung anak niya ng gutom. So sa kahihiyan, hindi niya lang niya pinapapasok yung anak niya, Mr. President. So all of these legal issues can be attributed to people having decent jobs and decent wages. And so I joined the Senate President and our colleagues in co-sponsoring this very important measure. It may not seem like a lot because it is really not that much, but I believe it paves the way in us recognizing that this cannot continue as it is. When His Honor, the Senate President, mentioned BARM, we do need to look into this and see how we can single out those areas that need more support, because it is just really how it is. I mean, when I traveled and His Honor, the Senate President, and I are walking mates during our official trips, I've talked to our embassies and our host countries about their poverties in their countries. Their poverties, at least the countries I've visited, are different from our poverties. May bahay pa rin silang nauuwian. Pag may malamig, baka pinag-aawayan nila ng konti, yung heater hindi ganun kainit. Pero may trabaho naman. Yung trabaho siguro nila, kung 600 euro a month na maliit sa Europe, pero 600 times 60, that's 36,000 pesos. And here we're talking about hindi pa umaabot sa 15,000 pesos, Mr. President. So it's incomparable, but it is not acceptable that we continue this way. So I thank His Honor.